Immortal Cultivation family. My comprehension ability can be stored dest video experiment para intretenimiento y no infringe derechos de autor en iles. Los derechos de la novela while our imaginación del autor original. No reclamamos propiedad. No te gusta respira y queers escuchar est fanfic completo horror. Suscrebet en nuestro Patreon. Donde encontrarás los mejores fanfics. Chapter 126. Life and Death. Lingboy Island. In a fresh and elegant pavilion. A tall, handsome young monk in a white Taoist robe sat on a stone bench, looking calmly at the raindrops in the spirit pool outside the pavilion. Behind him, a Zhao family late foundation building cultivator stood with his hands folded. You mean, Ling's house city is about to be built? Zhao Mubei sprinkled a handful of spiritual grains, attracting the spiritual fish in the spirit pool to scramble for them. Report to the young clan leader. Yes. The Zhao family foundation building cultivator lowered his head. How many independent cultivators have left our market? A lot. The Zhao family foundation building cultivator's voice trembled slightly. The number of independent cultivators who have left is about 30%, and they are still leaving. 30%. Zhao Mubei raised his head. Didn't the family also build a spiritual vein for independent cultivators to practice? Hearing this, the foundation building cultivator behind him lowered his head, not knowing how to answer. Sure enough, the little guy was right. After saying this silently in his heart, Zhao Mubei continued, what about the core business district? The losses are heavy. A large number of shops have withdrawn from the core business district, and the number of customers has also decreased by 20% compared to before. 20%. This is just the beginning, alas. Zhao Mubei did not expect that the establishment of Ling's house city would have such a great impact on Guanghan Prefecture. Just as he was about to say something, a beautiful maid came in, bowed and said, young patriarch, there is a young master outside who wants to see you. Young master? Zhao Mubei looked at the maid strangely. He said you will understand after reading this. The maid said, took out a white jade slip, and handed it over. Zhao Mubei swept his spiritual sense and immediately saw Chen Daoxuan waiting outside, and smiled and said, please ask him to come in. Yes, young patriarch. Seeing the maid retreat, Zhao Mubei waved his hand and said, you can go down too. But, young patriarch, are we going to do nothing, and sit back, and watch Ling's house city grow? The Zhao family cultivator in the late stage of foundation building said anxiously. Who said we didn't do anything? Aren't we building spiritual veins? Seeing that the other party wanted to talk again, Zhao Mubei waved his hand. Young clan leader, I'll take my leave. Looking at his departing back, Zhao Mubei felt a little headache. The continuous expansion of Ling's house city made more and more Zhao family cultivators dissatisfied. The elders at the clan meeting also kept making trouble and wanted to take action against Ling's house city. Even with Zhao Mubei's prestige, he began to gradually be unable to suppress these hardliners. Chen Daoxuan followed the Zhao family maid and came to the pavilion where Zhao Mubei was sitting. Senior Zhao. Chen Daoxuan bowed. Who knew that the moment Zhao Mubei saw Chen Daoxuan, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. His figure instantly disappeared in the pavilion, and the next moment, Zhao Mubei appeared directly in front of Chen Daoxuan. He pointed at Chen Daoxuan and said in a trembling voice, you actually did it? Junior was lucky. Zhao Mubei took a deep breath, then let out a long sigh. I really don't know whether I helped you or hurt you by giving you this jade slip. At this moment, Zhao Mubei couldn't help but feel very sorry. This kind of emotion is only felt when seeing a cultivator who is more brilliant than him about to die in front of him. Senior, when I saw the sword cultivation path recorded in your jade slip, I was attracted by it. If I die because of it, I will die without regrets. After saying that, Chen Daoxuan stared at him with burning eyes. Hearing this, Zhao Mubei could hardly restrain his admiration for Chen Daoxuan. He kept nodding and said, good. What a great way to die without regrets. Sword cultivators of our generation should be like this. Senior. Don't call me senior. Zhao Mubei raised his hand. Based on this sentence of dying without regrets, you and I will be friends as equals from now on. Brother Zhao. Ha 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 ha. How wonderful. Zhao Mubei laughed. If you succeed, you will definitely be famous in the Wangxing Sea in the future. If you die, Zhao Mubei's voice lowered. I will also keep your Chen family safe during my lifetime. Hearing this promise, Chen Daoxuan looked at Zhao Mubei in a daze and said sincerely, thank you, brother Zhao. He paused and said seriously, but before that, I have one more thing I want to ask brother Zhao. You tell me. Zhao Mubei waved his hand. It's about my cousin. As he said that, Chen Daoxuan gave a detailed introduction to Chen Ziyan's situation. After listening to this, Zhao Mubei kept shaking his head and sighing. You are nearly 100 years old. It's too late. If you are under 65 years old, as far as I know, there is still a kind of natural treasure that you can try, but at this age. Zhao Mubei kept shaking his head while speaking. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan, who was originally full of expectations, gradually felt his heart sink. As a cultivator, you have to get used to the people around you gradually leaving you. You know, not every relative has such a good talent as you. Zhao Mubei comforted. Daoxuan, life and death are impermanent. If we don't become immortals, you and I will eventually have such a day, sooner or later. But Chen Daoxuan was still unwilling to give up after hearing this. He looked up and said, brother Zhao, if there is a kind of elixir that can help older cultivators forcibly open up the Danshan Qi Si, can't it also help him build the foundation? Zhao Mubei shook his head. It's not that simple. In your opinion, what is foundation building? Spiritual energy tempering the body, Qi Si expansion, and true Qi transformation. What you said is just superficial. Zhao Mubei explained. The deeper changes in the cultivator's foundation building are the transformation of the soul. Do you know why we call Mahayana true immortals pure yang true immortals? Chen Daoxuan shook his head. Chun yang refers to the complete transformation of the soul, and foundation building is the first step of the transformation. Your uncle Chen Ziyan is not deficient in blood and Qi, nor is he deficient in true Qi, but in the soul. Then can't spiritual medicine remedy the lack of soul? Of course it's not that simple. Zhao Mubei shook his head and said, if a person is compared to a candle, then before he is 60 years old, this candle is burning vigorously, and after 60 years old, this candle gradually burns out. At this time, your spiritual medicine to prolong life is just adding a fire to the candle, but it has no effect on the candle itself. Hearing this explanation, Chen Daoxuan's eyes completely dimmed. My condolences. Zhao Mubei patted his shoulder and said. After speaking, he handed over a foundation building pill and said, although it may not be of much use to you, it can increase your chances of building a foundation. Thank you, brother Zhao. Chen Daoxuan took the foundation building pill and smiled palely. Watching Chen Daoxuan leave, Zhao Mubei sighed. Another person who values love. What a pity, what a pity. Back to the Han Guy Flying Sword shop. Chen Daoxuan adjusted his mood and acted as if nothing had happened. You're back. Chen Ziyan reproached. I told you, our Chen family doesn't lack these 10,000 or 20,000 spirit stones now. Why should we owe people favors for this? You know, debts of favor are the hardest to repay. Yes, Daoxuan knows his mistake. Chen Daoxuan looked at Chen Ziyan, whose face was gradually getting older, and said with a smile. Chapter 127 Borrowing Spiritual Veins. Redwood Island. Seaview Pavilion. You want to borrow the spiritual vein of my clan. Eluoli looked at Chen Daoxuan with a strange expression, and then felt a harmonious aura on him, and exclaimed, ah, you want to build a foundation? Yes. Chen Daoxuan smiled and nodded. Of course there is no problem with using the spiritual vein, but what? Chen Daoxuan frowned. In theory, as a subsidiary race of the Chen family, the spiritual vein of the mermaids is the spiritual vein of his Chen family. It's just that Chen Daoxuan used the word borrow to show respect for the mermaids. No, nothing. Eluoli saw Chen Daoxuan's slightly dissatisfied face and finally held back the words that were about to come out of his mouth. The underwater world of Wangxinghe. Demonate Mountain. In the cave of Eluozuan, the leader of the mermaids. Several elderly mermaids in the late stage of building a foundation are talking to Eluozuan. Chief, the Greenwater 8 clan, which is adjacent to Ardemonade Mountain, has repeatedly invaded the border of Ardemonade Mountain and has injured several of our clan members. Do you think they are Looking at the old mermaid in front of him who was older than him, Luoziuan sighed. The Green Water 8 clan is testing us. Testing? The old mermaid was stunned, and then reacted. You mean, they know about your injury? At this point, a trace of fear flashed in the eyes of the old mermaid. Once Luoziuan's injury is exposed, it will definitely be a disaster for the mermaids. The mermaids can occupy this 3rd level spiritual vein in Demon 8 Mountain, all thanks to the deterrence of Luoziuan, a late stage purple mansion cultivator. If the outside world knew that Luoziuan was seriously injured and could not be cured, I'm afraid that other races living near Demon 8 Mountain would come to the door in a minute and tear the mermaids apart completely. As if thinking of something, the old mermaid hesitated and said, Patriarch, do you think the Wu family is behind the Green Water Monkey clan? Hearing this, Luoziuan thought about it and then shook his head. Guang'an Prefecture experienced the Shenzhou Rebellion and the Zenan Pass battle of that year, which led to the decline of high-level cultivators in major families. The Wu family is the most affected family. They don't even have a purple mansion cultivator now, and they may not be able to control the Green Water Monkey clan as they did before. What do you mean? This is probably the Green Water Monkey clan's own idea. They want our Demon 8 Mountain. Compared with the Wangxing Sea under the rule of Carneo Sword Sect, the survival rules of the Wangxing Sea underwater world are more than 100 times more cruel. It is common for various races to fight each other. Just like the mermaids killed all the water demon apes and occupied the Demon 8 Mountain, the Green Water Monkey clan can also kill all the mermaids and occupy the other party's spiritual veins again. Here, there is no order at all. Although the Zhenhe Palace is well known in the Wangxinghe underwater world, they don't care about the fighting between the various races in the Wangxinghe underwater world. In fact, behind the fighting between the major races in the Wangxinghe underwater world, there is a shadow of the Zhenhe Palace. At least it is the Zhenhe Palace that is guiding it intentionally or unintentionally. Because only when the alien races in the sea fight each other can the Zhenhe Palace better control the Wangxinghe underwater world. Otherwise, if the major races in the Wangxinghe underwater world unite, wouldn't it be a pain for Carneo Sword Sect? Regarding this point, the various races in the Wangxinghe underwater world may not be unable to see it, but the Zhenhe Palace is too powerful. In addition, the various races have fought for countless years and have long formed a blood feud. It is not something that can be stopped just by wanting to stop. While the few people were talking, 2 figures flew towards Luoziuan's cave. With a sweep of his spiritual consciousness, Luoziuan found the figure of Chen Daoxuan. Seeing Chen Daoxuan as the patriarch of a subordinate race, Luoziuan struggled to stand up and salute the other party, but his injuries were too serious. At this moment, Luoziuan couldn't even stand up, which was a very simple action in the eyes of ordinary people. Sorry. Seeing Chen Daoxuan, Luoziuan forced a bitter smile on his pale face and said, I'm not feeling well, so I can't salute you, my lord. After seeing Chen Daoxuan, the other mermaids, although their faces were different, still bowed to Chen Daoxuan and said, Greetings, my lord. No need to be polite. Chen Daoxuan raised his hand. Seeing everyone stand up, Chen Daoxuan looked at Luoziuan and said, Senior Luo, I came here this time to borrow the spiritual vein of your mermaid clan. Although Luoziuan was seriously injured, his consciousness was not damaged. As soon as Chen Daoxuan entered the cave, he felt the harmonious aura of the other party. Obviously, the other party wanted to borrow the 3rd level spiritual vein of the mermaid clan to build his foundation. For this request, the patriarch of the mermaid clan naturally had no reason to refuse. But he seemed to think of something and said hesitantly, My lord, it's not that I intend to refuse, but my Demon 8 Mountain has not been peaceful recently. As he said that, he told Chen Daoxuan about the Green Water Monkey clan spying on the Demon 8 Mountain. Who knew that? After listening, Chen Daoxuan pondered and said, It's okay, it won't take me a few days to build my foundation. It can't be such a coincidence that the Green Water Monkey clan came to my door just when I was building my foundation, right? At this point, Chen Daoxuan laughed himself. The fight between the two tribes, especially the tribes like the mermaids and the Green Water Monkey clan, which have purple mansion monks sitting in charge. It is impossible to fight to the death without thinking. Just like when the mermaids attacked the water demon ape clan, they also tried for a long time before deciding to launch a general attack. Even if Chen Daoxuan was unlucky, the green water monkey clan attacked during the process of building the foundation. But the mermaids can't be unable to resist even the other side's tentative attack. After all, in recent years, the mermaids have purchased a large number of magic tools from his Chen family. In terms of the strength of the key refining and foundation building stages, they are much stronger than the Green Water Ape clan who are unarmed. Luoxiuan heard this and nodded in agreement. In his opinion, even if the Green Water Ape clan attacked the Demon Ape Mountain today, they would have no problem persisting for 10 days or half a month. And this period of time is enough for Chen Daoxuan to successfully build his foundation. Thinking of this, Luoxiuan looked at Luoli, who accompanied Chen Daoxuan into the cave, and said, "Liu, take the master to the main spiritual eye of the Demon Ape Mountain, and give orders that our clan members should not use spiritual energy to practice these days, so as not to affect the master's foundation building." "Yes, daddy." Luoli saluted and said. After leaving the cave, Luoli took Chen Daoxuan straight to the main spiritual eye of the Demon Ape Mountain. A moment later, a huge spiritual liquid lake appeared in front of Chen Daoxuan between the mountains of the Demon Ape Mountain. Seeing a spiritual lake in the underwater world sounds a bit strange, but Chen Daoxuan can only describe the one in front of him as a spiritual lake. Due to the influence of seawater, the spiritual lake here is different from the spiritual lake on the ground. Looking down from above, the spiritual lake of the Demon Ape Mountain is a huge group of spiritual liquid, floating on the main spiritual eye of the Demon Ape Mountain. It looks quite shocking. Chen Daoxuan stood in front of this spiritual lake, as small as an ant. Is this the main spiritual eye of the third level spiritual vein? Thinking of the spiritual pond formed by the first level spiritual vein of the Chen family, Chen Daoxuan couldn't help but say, "Yes, it is it." Luoli nodded. "With it, you don't have to worry about insufficient spiritual energy for tempering your body when you build your foundation. This is not enough. This is simply enough." No wonder the third level spiritual vein can support the foundation building cultivator to break through the purple mansion. It is normal for such a huge spiritual liquid lake to support the foundation building cultivator to break through the purple mansion. It seems a bit extravagant to use this spiritual lake for him to build his foundation. However, the foundation built by Chen Daoxuan is different from that of other key refining cultivators, so it is understandable that he is a little extravagant. Otherwise, if he uses the second level spiritual veins to build the foundation, and then the lack of spiritual energy leads to failure, then Chen Daoxuan will not even be able to cry. Chapter 128, Foundation Building. Second tempering. Southwest of the Huangxing Sea, a common Yang family cargo ship was sailing in Guang'an Prefecture, cutting through the wind and waves. On the deck of the cargo ship, two cultivators who had just established their foundation were talking in voice transmission. "Brother, this battlefield of Chuan country is really a treasure land for us casual cultivators. If we can obtain the inheritance of the Shenzhou Immortal Mansion this time, we will return to the battlefield of Chuan country. By then." The rough-faced man paused, with hope in his eyes, not to mention the purple mansion and the golden pill, even the Yuanying's engine. "You and I can hope for it." Hearing this, the white-faced middle-aged cultivator, who he called brother, was wearing a green robe and looked like a scholar. He was seen with his hands behind his back, looking at the sea and said calmly, "This trip to the godly immortal mansion is uncertain. You and I have just established our foundation. We must be careful, and don't be careless." If Chen Daoxuan was here, he would definitely recognize that this rough middle-aged monk was the monk's surnamed son who had deceived him into buying the treasure map of the godly immortal mansion. "Yes, brother, I will listen to you." The rough-faced man said honestly. Seeing his brother's honest look, the white-faced monk smiled and shook his head. The underwater world of the Huangxing Sea. The spiritual eyes of the Demon Ape Mountain Lord. In Luoli's blessing eyes, Chen Daoxuan stepped into the spiritual lake. His whole body was immersed in the spiritual liquid of the spiritual lake. In the Danshan Key Sea, the true key that had been tempered by the sword intent had long been polished by him into a round and integrated whole, and there was no room for improvement. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan first took out a foundation building pill and swallowed it. Then he followed the breakthrough method recorded in returning to the origin to circulate the true key in the Danshan Qi Si. As the method was running, the true key in the Danshan Qi Si was like sparks entering oil, exploding with a bang. This impact was so fierce that it was more than 10 or 100 times more violent than the true key described by Chen Daoxuan's foundation building experience from various channels. But Chen Daoxuan knew that this was the price to pay for taking the path of the strongest sword cultivator. Fortunately, the foundation building pill he had taken in advance played a role at this moment. The violent true key was slightly calmed down by it, but soon, the true key began to transform into true essence. At this time, the terrifying true key mixed with true essence ran wild in the Danshan Qi Si, and the foundation building pill was no longer able to calm it. Seeing this, Chen Daoxuan silently used the second grade lotus of good fortune to absorb the violent true essence. In the spirit lake, countless spiritual energy rushed towards Chen Daoxuan's body. A small part of these spiritual energies were absorbed by Chen Daoxuan's body to temper his body, and the other half rushed to his Danshan Qi Si. With the support of the endless spiritual energy, the true energy seemed endless, and was constantly transformed into true essence. At this moment, the transformed true essence began to rapidly expand the Danshan Qi Si. If Chen Daoxuan's original Qi Si was only a short inch, then at this moment, in less than 3 breaths, the Danshan Qi Si has doubled. Moreover, the speed of the Qi Si expansion is getting faster and faster. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxuan's face changed suddenly. No. If this goes on, the crazy surge of true essence will definitely burst his Danshan Qi Si. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan ordered the second grade fortune white lotus in the center of the Danshan to absorb true essence crazily. At this moment, a strange painting style appeared in Chen Daoxuan's Danshan Qi Si. On the one hand, the outside world was frantically infusing spiritual energy into his Danshan, which was refined into true energy and then transformed into true essence, and the crazy surge of true essence was still expanding his Danshan Qi Si. On the other side, in the center of the Danshan Qi Si, there is another lotus-shaped magic weapon, which is constantly absorbing the surging true essence, so that it will not expand the Qi Si so violently. This time, with the help of the second grade white lotus of good fortune, Chen Daoxuan's speed of expanding the Danshan Qi Si quickly slowed down a lot, and returned to a relatively stable state. Seeing this, Chen Daoxuan breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, the most feared thing for a cultivator in the key refining stage to build a foundation is that after the true key is transformed into true essence, it will suddenly impact the Danshan Qi Si and burst the Qi Si. After all, how can the true essence of the foundation building stage be accepted by the Danshan Qi Si of the key refining stage? The role of the foundation building pill is to soothe the transformed true essence and make it less violent. But at this moment, for Chen Daoxuan, the foundation building pill has no effect at all except for soothing the violent true key at the beginning. Now the only thing that is useful to him is the white lotus in his Danshan Qi Si. You must hold on, Chen Daoxuan said silently in his heart. In the spirit lake, around Chen Daoxuan, the terrifying spiritual energy formed a huge spiritual energy vortex. Outside the vortex, a large amount of spiritual liquid turned into spiritual energy and was absorbed by Chen Daoxuan. At the same time, new spiritual liquid was constantly replenished to maintain the consumption of Chen Daoxuan's foundation building. It was not just the changes in the Danshan Qi Si. Chen Daoxuan's body also began to strengthen little by little under such a huge spiritual energy. Fortunately, Chen Daoxuan has been practicing body refining techniques for many years, and his physical strength is far beyond that of ordinary key refining cultivators. Even compared with most foundation building cultivators, Chen Daoxuan's physical strength is far beyond them. In this way, the first major difficulty in his foundation building, spiritual energy tempering, is actually the easiest level for him. Eluoli looked at the expression on Chen Daoxuan's face in the spiritual lake. It was first ferocious, and then returned to indifference, and her heart gradually calmed down. She knew that Chen Daoxuan must have passed the most difficult level. Next, just choose to break through step by step. Thinking of this, Eluoli smiled, and quietly sat on a stone beside her, protecting Chen Daoxuan. Time passed day by day. In a blink of an eye, a month had passed. This time, fortunately, Chen Daoxuan chose to break through the third order spiritual vein. If he had chosen the second order spiritual vein, he would have encountered the problem of insufficient spiritual energy. Because the spiritual energy lake outside his body had dried up by nearly half. So much spiritual energy was all transformed into food for Chen Daoxuan to temper his body and expand his sea of qi. Of course. More importantly, it was the transformation of his soul. However, Chen Daoxuan could not see or sense the transformation of his soul. He could only sense that his sea of consciousness was constantly expanding, and his consciousness was strengthening step by step. At this moment, he had not yet completely broken through to the foundation building stage, but he found that the range of his consciousness had exceeded the 10-mile radius of the first level cultivators of the foundation building stage. Moreover, this range was still expanding. This also meant that the transformation of Chen Daoxuan's sea of consciousness was no less than that of his Danshan sea of qi. Fortunately, Chen Daoxuan's sea of consciousness was guarded by the Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra, otherwise Chen Daoxuan's foundation building would definitely fail this time. Because foundation building is definitely not the change of qi sea in his imagination. There are also changes in the sea of consciousness. The reason why other key refining cultivators do not encounter the difficulty of expanding the sea of consciousness is that the expansion of their sea of consciousness is far less terrifying than Chen Daoxuan's. For ordinary key refining cultivators, the range of their spiritual consciousness can be transformed from 1 mile to 10 miles in radius, which is basically the limit. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan's spiritual consciousness has almost reached more than 30 miles in radius. This is already the spiritual consciousness strength of a cultivator in the late stage of foundation building, and what is more terrifying is that his spiritual consciousness is still increasing. For cultivators, whether it is true ki or spiritual consciousness, it will not be enhanced for no reason, and there must be some consumption. For example, true ki consumes spiritual energy to gain enhancement, and the things consumed by the enhancement of spiritual consciousness are more obscure. Many cultivators don't even know. In fact, the enhancement of spiritual consciousness is closely related to the soul. The stronger the soul, the larger the sea of consciousness, and the stronger the spiritual consciousness. The transformation of the soul is closely related to the cultivation of the cultivator. Therefore, after the general cultivator breaks through, the consciousness will be greatly enhanced. This is the reason Chen Daoxuan's foundation building this time, due to the influence of the Silk Rain Sword Intention and the Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra, the degree of transformation of the soul is far more exaggerated than that of ordinary cultivators. As a result, Chen Daoxuan's sea of qi is not only expanding rapidly, but the expansion of the sea of consciousness is no less than his sea of qi. In fact, because of the existence of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra, it is even more abnormal. As the space of the sea of consciousness continues to expand, the invisible and intangible consciousness is also constantly increasing. Outside the spirit lake. For this month, Eluoli has been guarding Chen Daoxuan step by step. Suddenly, Eluoli, who was closing her eyes to rest, suddenly opened her eyes. She frowned, looked at the female tribesman flying towards her, and asked, "What's the matter? Princess, the Green Water Ape clan has invaded the Demon Ape Mountain, and is now challenging outside the main vein," the female merman hurriedly said after arriving. Si estas escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas, significa que descargaran y sabiran sin esfuso ten invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas y encontrarás la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos géneros. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas increíbles. Chapter 129, Transformation After Foundation Building. Hearing this, Eluoli glanced at Chen Daoxuan in the spirit lake, and her beautiful eyes gradually became firm. She shook her head at the female mermaid who came over and said, "Xiaoking, you go back first, don't worry about me. But, the Green Water Ape clan may send a small group of soldiers to harass from the rear at any time, and they will definitely pass through this place. Your Highness, it will be very dangerous for you to stay here. Is it worth it for this human race?" The female mermaid named Xiaoking said anxiously. "Is it worth it? In the underwater world, fighting, escaping, and fighting again have almost become the daily life of the mermaids. For a human race, it is possible to lose your life here. Is it worth it? For any mermaid, of course it is not worth it. But for Eluoli, she didn't want to see this person who was very special to her die. Just like when she saw her mother fall in front of her, she was powerless. This feeling of powerlessness, she never wanted to try again. Thinking of this, Eluoli drew out 2 red shadow swords and held them horizontally in her hands. The life spirit armor on her delicate body emerged. She looked at Zyra firmly and replied with one word, worth it. Who knew that after Zyra heard this, her frown gradually relaxed. She sighed, then raised her head and said, since Her Highness Princess is not leaving, then I will not leave either. Zyra, you. Zyra shook her head and smiled. Her Highness Princess, you don't have to say anything. Seeing her made like this, Eluoli smiled. Good sister, only death. Yes, only death. In the spirit lake, Chen Daoxuan's Danshan Ki seemed to have expanded to the limit. The speed of expansion gradually slowed down. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxuan simply let go of the second grade creation White Lotus to absorb the true essence. Suddenly, the expansion of the Danshan Ki surged again. In the end, it was motionless and could no longer expand. It's reached the limit. Chen Daoxuan said in his heart. Not only the Danshan Ki, his sea of consciousness is now at least 100 times larger than before. This seems a bit inaccurate. When a cultivator in the key refining stage first came into contact with cultivation, it was equivalent to lighting a glimmer in the sea of consciousness. Except for the place, illuminated by this glimmer, the sea of consciousness was all dark. But now, Chen Daoxuan's sea of consciousness was full of light. The illuminated area was at least 100 times wider than that in the key refining stage. This was undoubtedly an abnormal phenomenon. For a normal key refining stage cultivator to build a foundation, it was good enough for the sea of consciousness to expand 10 times. It was generally reflected in the range of the divine consciousness, which expanded from about 1 mile to 10 miles. At this moment, the range covered by Chen Daoxuan's divine consciousness. He immediately scanned it with his divine consciousness. 100 miles. Chen Daoxuan took a breath. Doesn't this mean that my current divine consciousness can be comparable to that of a purple mansion cultivator? Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan couldn't help but look at the golden scripture in the center of the sea of consciousness. It was this. Although comprehending the sword intent would also increase the cultivator's divine consciousness to a certain extent, its more important function was to temper the cultivator's true key and true essence, and the increase in divine consciousness was far less terrifying. Only the Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra. Perhaps this Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra has many functions that he doesn't understand. It's just that his cultivation is too low now, and he has just established his foundation, so he can't discover it at all. For now, Chen Daoxuan has discovered only 3 functions. First, restore spiritual consciousness. Second, and most importantly, store enlightenment. Third, help him expand his sea of consciousness when his cultivation breaks through. However, Chen Daoxuan can't care about so much at this moment, because he found that the Silk Rain sword intent he comprehended actually entered a new realm like a wild horse running away with the breakthrough of his cultivation. The sword realm of sword cultivators is actually greatly restricted by their cultivation. When a cultivator has a higher cultivation, it is much easier to comprehend the sword intent than when he has a lower cultivation. For example, Yang Gangwen, the prodigy of the Yang family, is like this. If she chooses to break through the purple mansion stage, she can immediately comprehend the sword intent, instead of standing still at the threshold of the sword intent like now. But at the same time, the earlier a cultivator comprehends the sword intent, the greater the benefit. For example, if you comprehend the sword intent in the foundation building stage, you can only temper your true essence once. For someone like Chen Daoxuan, he has one more chance to refine his true key than the cultivators who comprehend the sword intent in the foundation building period. This opportunity is exactly what all the sword cultivators in the world dream of. Zhao Mubei mentioned it repeatedly in the sword jade slip, and he was full of envy at Chen Daoxuan's current state. Of course, Comprehending different sword intents not only has different focuses, but also different degrees of comprehending sword intents, and the increase in the cultivator's combat power is also different. When cultivators initially comprehend sword intents, they are all invisible and intangible. They know it exists, but they cannot perceive it, let alone touch it. The second stage of sword intent. Zhao Mubei calls it the tangible stage. The transformation from invisible to tangible is the second realm of sword intent. Zhao Mubei is now in this realm. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan found that the silk rain sword intent he comprehended actually increased a lot with the disappearance of the suppression of cultivation. He even saw a trace of starlight in his dinshin. Is this the silk rain sword intent I comprehended? Chen Daoxuan murmured. This ray of starlight flickered, as if it could go out at any time, but it really existed. At least Chen Daoxuan could sense it. It was not like when he just comprehended the silk rain sword intent. He could not sense it at all. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this, Chen Daoxuan, who was immersed in the sword, could not help but laugh heartily. It was really, once you break through, the clouds will be cleared and the sun will be seen. At this moment, he had a feeling of clearing the clouds and seeing the sun. Chen Daoxuan took a deep breath. He immediately used the invisible starlight in the Danshan Qi Si to refine his true essence for the second time. At the beginning, when he refined his true Qi for the first time, the quality of his true Qi increased by about 3 times. After breaking through the foundation, the true Qi turned into true essence, and the quality increased tenfold. At this moment, when he refined his true essence for the second time, as the true essence in the Danshan Qi Si was refined by Chen Daoxuan bit by bit, Chen Daoxuan found that after the true essence was transformed into sword essence, the quality actually increased by 3 times. In other words, his current true essence is 90 times higher in quality than the true Qi when he did not comprehend the sword intent at the beginning. This is a qualitative change. I haven't calculated the quantitative change yet. Of course, other Qi refining cultivators are far less terrifying than him when they build their foundation. After ordinary Qi refining cultivators successfully build their foundation, their true Qi turns into true essence, and the qualitative increase is about 10 times. That is, 1 portion of true essence is equivalent to 10 portions of true Qi. Even if they switch to practicing the attribute skills of the foundation building period in the future, the true essence will have attribute bonuses, and the power can only be increased to about 30% to 70% or 80%. So calculated. Ordinary cultivators can only make their true essence more than 10 times higher in quality than their true Qi. It is far from the exaggerated level of Chen Daoxuan's 90 times. In other words, Chen Daoxuan's current true essence is about 7 or 8 times that of the true essence of the foundation building cultivator who has practiced the attribute skills. What is this concept? The manner of the purple mansion cultivator is about 10 times that of the true essence of the late foundation building cultivator in terms of quality. Chen Daoxuan's current true essence is 7 or 8 times the quality of the true essence of the early foundation building cultivator, that is, 3 or 4 times the true essence of the late foundation building cultivator. In other words, his current true essence strength is already comparable to 30% to 40% of the most common purple mansion cultivator's mana. When he switches to practicing attribute skills in the future, the power of his true essence can be increased by 70% to 80%. By then, his true essence can be comparable to 70% to 80% of the most common purple mansion cultivator's mana. When he reaches the late stage of foundation building, his true essence will be stronger than the mana of other purple mansion cultivators. This is why Zhao Mubei is obsessed with this path of sword cultivation. Because the basic strength of this kind of sword cultivation is really too strong. Chapter 130, The Power of Sword Cultivator. In the Spirit Lake, Chen Daoxuan was concentrating on refining his true essence. There were new changes in the outside world. Just as the female mermaid named Zyra King had expected, the Green Water Monkey clan had indeed sent an elite force from the rear to test the strength of the mermaid clan. Although the chief of the Green Water Monkey clan knew that the chief of the mermaid clan, Luozuan, was seriously injured, it did not know how serious the other party's injury was. It was even less clear whether the other party's injury had healed. Therefore, he had not dared to act rashly during this period. But after waiting for a long time, the chief of the mermaid clan never showed up. the chief of the Green Water Monkey clan, who had not dared to act rashly, began to stir in his heart. As long as they took down the Mermaid clan, they could occupy the thousands of miles of territory of the Demon Ape Mountain. Such a huge territory. How many resources should there be, and how many treasures can be exchanged with the human race? As long as they had the Demon Ape Mountain, their Green Water Monkey clan would be able to rise rapidly. At that time, with stronger strength, they can completely abandon the Wu family and find a stronger human backer. For example, the Zhao family of Guanghan Prefecture. In addition, there is another reason why the chief of the Green Water Monkey clan chose to attack the Mermaid clan. That is, the Mermaid clan is stronger than them. The Mermaid clan chief Luo Zhuan is in the late Purple Mansion, while his cultivation is only in the early 3rd stage, which is equivalent to the early Purple Mansion of the human race. If the Mermaid clan chief is not eliminated before his injury is recovered, when the Mermaid clan chief recovers from his injury, the unlucky neighbor of the Green Water Monkey clan will be them. After all, the Water Demon Ape clan is also their close relative, and they have seen what happened. In front, an elite team of 20 Green Water Monkeys flew from the back of the Demon Ape Mountains to the location of the main spiritual eye, HMM. The leader of the late 2nd stage Green Water Monkey found Luoli and Zioking in front of the spirit lake. It waved at the tribesmen behind it and communicated with its spiritual sense. Kill them, don't let them pass the message back. The intelligence of monsters is very high, especially the monkey monsters. Generally speaking, the intelligence of a 1st level monster is only equivalent to that of a 7 or 8-year-old child, while the intelligence of a 2nd level monster is almost the same as that of a 16 or 17-year-old human teenager. The intelligence of monkey monsters is even more exaggerated. The intelligence of a 2nd level green water ape is no less than that of an ordinary adult. Hearing the order of the leading green water ape, a group of 20 green water apes rushed towards Luoli and Zioking. Your Highness, be careful. Well, you should be careful too. As soon as he finished speaking, 20 green water apes had already arrived. There was no nonsense between the two sides. They started fighting as soon as they met. Facing this scene, Luoli had long been accustomed to it. Monsters are more direct than humans. They fear the strong, but they are far more cruel to the weak than humans. In the underwater world of Wangxinghe, the law of the jungle prevails. It is precisely because they follow this law that Zhenhe Palace can rely on crazy killings to establish an inviolable reputation among monsters and alien races. Kill. Luoli drew out 2 red shadow swords and rushed towards the group of green water monkeys. Zioking protected her flank. The battle between the mermaids and monsters is very different from that between humans. Because monsters are born with strong bodies, the mermaids have also practiced body training, so they prefer close combat. In other words, with the combination of true essence and physical strength, the strength exerted in close combat is stronger than the strength exerted by remotely controlled magic tools. Of course, the green water monkeys have no magic tools at all. They hold a kind of strange iron stick that they don't know where they got from. With a whistle, the group of green water monkeys killed Luoli and Zioking. Swish, swish, swish. Luoli's figure almost turned into countless after images in the green water monkey. However, as a green water monkey of the same level, they would not be confused by Luoli's body movements at all. The only thing to pay attention to is the magic weapon in her hand. Under the infusion of Luoli's true essence, the power of the red shadow sword is completely different from that in the hands of a cultivator in the key refining stage. But unfortunately, the grade of the red shadow flying sword is too low. It is only a low grade 1st grade. Luoli did not dare to infuse her true essence into the flying sword with all her strength, because a member of the Foundation establishment stage had done this before, and the array pattern on the red shadow sword was directly destroyed by the violent true essence. When the array pattern of the flying sword was destroyed, the spiritual charm of the magic weapon dissipated, and it became no different from ordinary iron. Therefore, Luoli would be very careful when using the red shadow sword, for fear of destroying it. In this way, it would be difficult for her to exert her full strength. But no matter what, it is better than bare hands. With the cooperation of her and Zioking, the 20 jade water monkeys were constantly injured. But their injuries were not serious. They were just scratched by the red shadow sword, which was not a big deal. The leading Jade Water Monkey opened his emerald eyes and looked at Xia King behind Eluoli with a creepy look and ordered, "Kill her first." After the short battle just now, it has discovered a problem. It is unrealistic to want to kill the mermaid in front of him in a short time. Because its iron rod hits the opponent's armor, not only can it not hurt the opponent, but it will hurt its arm. The only way is to kill Xia King next to Eluoli first, and then use their advantage in numbers to surround Eluoli in the middle, and slowly use a round battle to consume her true energy. When the opponent's true energy is exhausted, whether it is round or flat, it is up to them. It can be seen from this. The intelligence of this group of Jade Water Monkeys is really no less than that of ordinary people, and they also know how to use strategies. Sure enough, the tactics of the Jade Water Monkeys changed. The pressure on Xia King instantly increased. Eluoli has his own spiritual armor to protect him, but she doesn't. In an instant, 20 Jade Water Monkeys all wielded iron rods to attack her, and Xia King couldn't bear it at all. Seeing this scene, Eluoli was angry and anxious. She even used her body to block the attack for Xia King, but it didn't work at all. The stick skills of this group of Jade Water Monkeys are quite exquisite. They easily avoided Eluoli's slender figure. "Your Highness." Xia King looked at the countless stick shadows attacking her and closed her eyes in despair. Seeing this, Eluoli was ruthless and immediately used a forbidden technique. With the blessing of this forbidden technique, her body movements instantly became several times faster, and the attacks that were originally unstoppable were also blocked by her own spiritual armor. Using spiritual armor to resist damage. If it was seen by the human cultivators, it would probably be shocking. In the eyes of human cultivators, spiritual armor is completely a life-saving magic weapon, and there is no one who would take the initiative to use spiritual armor to hit others to attack. But at this moment, Eluoli had no other choice to save Xia King. With the help of the forbidden technique, Eluoli's figure turned into countless after images, covering all the green water monkeys. But unfortunately, the flying sword in her hand was too weak. It could only cut the flesh and blood on the surface of the green water monkeys. But with the recovery ability of the second level monster, Eluoli's speed of hurting the opponent was not as fast as their recovery. Gradually, the time limit of the forbidden technique passed. Seeing countless stick shadows falling on Xia King again, Eluoli was desperate. At this moment, it seemed as if time had stopped. She even faintly saw a trace of tears in the corners of Xia King's eyes. "What are you in a daze?" Just when she was desperate, a familiar voice came into Eluoli's ears. Before the voice fell, a starlight bloomed from the body of a green water monkey. Then, more and more starlights appeared, and finally they all connected into one. In just a moment, the bodies of 20 green water monkeys were completely torn into pieces by this starlight, leaving no residue. Looking at the familiar back in front of her, Eluoli was speechless. After a while, she said with surprise, "Chen Daoxuan, you succeeded?" Chapter 131 Intimidation. HMM. Xia King's groan at the sight brought Eluoli back to his senses. "Ah. Xia King, are you okay?" Eluoli immediately ignored Chen Daoxuan, threw down the red shadow sword in his hand, and flew towards Xia King. "Check carefully." Eluoli breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's just that the internal organs were broken by a blunt object. Being broken by a blunt object, this kind of injury on an ordinary person would definitely be a life-threatening injury. But for a mermaid in the foundation building stage, it would be a minor injury at most. It will recover in a day or two. Xia King glanced at Eluoli, and then at Chen Daoxuan beside her. Her eyes lit up slightly, and said, "Don't worry about me first. The Green Water 8 clan is challenging in front of the main vein. You go to help." She asked Eluoli to rescue, but in fact her eyes were looking at Chen Daoxuan. How could Chen Daoxuan not understand what she meant? It was nothing more than seeing him easily kill 20 foundation building stage green water monkeys in seconds, thinking that his strength was enough to rival the Purple Mansion cultivators. They wanted him to rescue the mermaids. However, Chen Daoxuan did not know the true strength of the Green Water Monkey clan, so how could he risk his life? "Miss Xia King, right? My lord." Seeing Chen Daoxuan, Xia King struggled to stand up and saluted him. Chen Daoxuan nodded slightly and said, "I wonder how strong this Green Water Monkey clan you are talking about is." Hearing this, Xia King hurriedly explained, the Green Water Monkey clan is a monkey-like demon beast race near my Demon Ape Mountain. Their clan leader is only at the initial stage of the 3rd level, which is equivalent to the initial stage of the Purple Mansion cultivator of the human race. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan shook his head. If it were in the past, he would still use his cultivation to judge the strength of a cultivator, but after discovering that there were cultivators like him and Zhao Mubei in the world who did not judge by common sense, Chen Daoxuan did not dare to simply use his cultivation to judge the true strength of a cultivator. The opponent does seem to be only at the initial stage of the Purple Mansion, but how big is the difference in strength between different initial stages of the Purple Mansion? You can see it by looking at Zhao Mubei and Luoxiuan, the leader of the mermaid tribe. Zhao Mubei probably didn't use his full strength at the beginning, and he beat Luoxiuan so badly that he fled. If he had used his full strength, Luoxiuan would definitely have died in Guang'an Prefecture that day. Chen Daoxuan is indeed confident that he can fight the most ordinary Purple Mansion cultivator. But if the leader of the Green Water Monkey clan is someone like Zhao Mubei, no, even if he only has half the strength of Zhao Mubei, if Chen Daoxuan goes to support, it would be tantamount to seeking death. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's silence, Xia King immediately guessed his concerns. He said, Master, please rest assured. If the leader of the Green Water Monkey clan is really strong, why would he not dare to attack us directly, but choose to send his people to test us? Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan looked up at the sky and remained silent. Seeing him like this, Xia King beside him was anxious, but did not dare to urge him. On the side, Luoli was also wavering in her heart. On the one hand, she hoped that Chen Daoxuan could rescue her people, but on the other hand, she didn't want Chen Daoxuan to take risks. For a moment, she was very conflicted. After a while, she looked at Chen Daoxuan and said, you should leave. There's no need to die with us. What are you thinking about? Chen Daoxuan smiled casually. I'm thinking about how to repel the enemy. Do you think I'm thinking about how to escape? Seeing that she had misunderstood Chen Daoxuan, Luoli's pretty face flushed. She immediately said, have you thought of a way? I have some clues. After a moment of silence, Chen Daoxuan looked at Luoli. Do you think that the Zhenhe Palace is a big deterrent to the Bishu Ape clan? Hearing this, Luoli was shocked by Chen Daoxuan's audacity. Of course it's big. Luoli hesitated. Just pretending to be the envoy of Zhenhe Palace is a serious crime, even if you are a human. Chen Daoxuan shook his head. How could I pretend directly? Then how did you? Chen Daoxuan smiled but said nothing. Just said, you will know when the time comes. Come on, I will take you home. At this moment, starlight sprinkled on Chen Daoxuan's profile. Luoli looked at the tall and handsome man in front of him and nodded vigorously. Okay, let's go home together. Under the main vein of Demon Ape Mountain, the chief of the Green Water Ape clan led tens of thousands of clansmen, staring at the mermaids on the main vein. Confrontation. The chief of the Green Water Monkey clan spoke in human language, saying, I didn't know that the mermaids migrated here. I'm really rude. Today is a good day to pay a visit to the chief of the mermaids. Please let everyone know. A giant monkey several feet tall, carrying an iron rod as thick as a tree stump on his shoulder, walked in front of the two armies, jumping and saying, Humph, is it necessary to make such a big fuss to pay a visit to the chief of my clan? How about you come alone? Hearing this, the chief of the Green Water Monkey clan rolled his eyes, revealing a hint of fear. But he said, I brought many tribesmen with me on this trip, so it is inconvenient for me to go to your tribe. Please ask your tribe leader to come out. After a pause, it said, is it true that your tribe leader was seriously injured by Zhao Mubei as the rumors say? If so, I have a magic pill that I asked from the human race. Maybe it can save your tribe leader's life. Stop talking nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. The old man of the Merman tribe said with a beard and eyes glaring. Hearing this, the tribe leader of the Green Water Ape tribe dared not act rashly. It looked at a tribe member beside it and said with its head down, what's going on? Where are the tribe members I sent out to test the strength of the Merman tribe? I don't know. After they went around the back mountain of the Demon Ape Mountain, there has been no news until now. Maybe they have encountered some trouble. The tribe member next to it said tremblingly. What a bunch of trash. The tribe leader of the Green Water Ape tribe cursed. At this time, a white figure flew out from the mermaid camp. He threw a green water monkey's head in front of the two armies and said, "Are you looking for this? Huh. Human race." Seeing Chen Daoxuan, the green water monkey chief's momentum suddenly weakened. In the underwater world of Wang Xinghe, alien races have a natural fear of humans. This fear comes from their fear of Zhenhe Palace. The green water monkey chief took a closer look. The monkey head seemed to be a member of his tribe he sent out. "Fellow Daoist, what do you mean?" Although he was full of anger, the green water monkey chief still spoke cautiously. Seeing its cautious appearance, Chen Daoxuan was relieved. "My intention is to get out of Demon Ape Mountain immediately." After the words fell, a starlight pierced through the seawater space and instantly killed the green water monkey chief. Seeing this sword, or threat of death immediately enveloped it. Boom. Critical moment. It raised the strange iron rod in its hand and blocked the fatal blow. But its arm was shaking slightly. Obviously, the power of this sword was far beyond the reach of an ordinary foundation building cultivator. Sword cultivator. Definitely a sword cultivator. At this moment, it seemed to mistake the person in front of it for Guangan Sword Immortal Zhao Mu Bei. But obviously, the other party was not. Because it knew Zhao Mu Bei, not Zhao Mu Bei, so young, and a sword cultivator. Guangan Prefecture did not have such a person at all. The only possibility was "Who are you?" Although it had a vague guess in its heart, it still did not dare to believe it. "Stupid, who do you think I am? You are Zensen." This time, the chief of the Green Water Ape clan, who finally confirmed the other party's identity, was so scared that he could not even finish his words. Then, it immediately threw away the iron rod in its hand, knelt on the ground with a plop, and shouted loudly, "I bumped into the Dharma carriage of the Zhenhe Palace. Damn it. Damn it." As he said, he kowtowed like pounding garlic. It was hard to imagine that the chief of the Green Water Ape clan, who was just arrogant and wanted to destroy the mermaids, was now kneeling on the ground like a clown, constantly kowtowing. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan became even more curious about the Zhenhe Palace. What kind of existence could suppress the alien race to such a fear? It was not just the Green Water Ape clan. He carefully recalled the uncontrollable fear in the eyes of the chief of the mermaids when he mentioned the Kainian sword sect when he first met him. Kainian sword sect. Although Chen Daoxuan had heard of this name before he embarked on the path of cultivation, he had never been as shocked as this time. A purple mansion cultivator knelt in front of a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building and kept kowtowing. Just based on the 3 words Zhenhe Palace under the Kainian sword sect. Chapter 132, Snowfall. Demon Ape Mountain. The cave of the leader of the mermaid tribe. Alright. Chen Daoxuan pulled his right hand away from Luoxiuan's chest. "You are lucky. It happened that I broke through my cultivation and made great progress in swordsmanship. Otherwise, with your injuries, you would not live more than 3 years at most." Luoxiuan felt the sword energy from the wound on his chest being dissolved by Chen Daoxuan's sword intent, and he felt relaxed all over his body, as if he had unloaded a burden of billions of pounds. At this moment, although his face was still pale, unparalleled strength returned to his majestic body. "Thank you for saving my life, my lord." Luoxiuan stood up, bowed his head in front of Chen Daoxuan, and said respectfully. Chen Daoxuan waved his hand. "Stand up." "Thank you, my lord." As if thinking of something. Then, Chen Daoxuan looked at everyone strangely and said, "Is the Green Water Ape clan so afraid of the Zhenhe Palace?" This sentence. The whole cave suddenly became quiet, and you could hear a pin drop. For a long while, Luoxiuan bowed and said, "My lord, you may not live in the underwater world of Wang Xinghe, and you don't know much about the situation here. It should not be said that the Green Water Monkey clan is afraid of the Zhenhe Palace. Rather, in the underwater world of Wang Xinghe, there is no race that is not afraid of the Zhenhe Palace. Not even one." Chen Daoxuan was quite surprised. There used to be. Luoxiuan paused, but they were all exterminated. At this point, his voice suddenly became low. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan was silent. He originally just wanted to use the reputation of the Zhenhe Palace to make the Green Water Monkey clan afraid to act rashly and retreat, but he didn't expect that the effect was far beyond his expectations. The chief of the Green Water Monkey clan almost rolled and crawled away from the Demon Ape Mountain. It can be seen. What kind of shadow did the three words Zenhei Palace leave on it? After leaving the cave, Chen Daoxuan looked at the starry sky of the underwater world. This time, because his cultivation broke through to the foundation building stage, he seemed to feel that the starry sea above his head had become a little different. But where exactly was different? Chen Daoxuan couldn't say. Let's go. He glanced at Eluoli beside him. Yeah. Eluoli nodded, grabbed Chen Daoxuan's hand and headed towards the sea. In fact, as Chen Daoxuan broke through the foundation building stage, he could already learn the art of water escape, so there was no need for Eluoli to hold his hand. But at this moment, the two seemed to have a tacit understanding, and did not mention this. Out of the sea, returning to the human world again, Chen Daoxuan felt a big sigh of relief. He glanced at Eluoli beside him and asked, "Why do I feel that you were so calm when dealing with the invasion of the Green Water Ape clan? Am I wrong?" After hearing this, Eluoli was stunned at first, then shook her head, with a hint of bitterness on her pretty face, and said, "This is a life in the underwater world of Wangxinghei. I've been used to it for so many years." The words "I've been used to it" revealed too much bitterness that Chen Daoxuan didn't understand. At this moment, he didn't know how to comfort the girl in front of him. Perhaps for her, all comfort was pale. "I'm leaving." He waved to Eluoli, then turned and flew into the air. Eluoli was left alone, staring at his receding figure in a daze. After identifying the direction, Chen Daoxuan flew towards Shuanghu Island. Compared with the key refining stage, the speed of the foundation establishment stage cultivators is more than 10 times faster. As a sword cultivator, Chen Daoxuan's escape light should be faster than that of ordinary foundation establishment cultivators. But the unfortunate thing is that his current flying speed is really not as fast as that of ordinary foundation establishment cultivators. Because he has just broken through the foundation establishment stage, he has not had time to practice various sword controlling flying techniques and the technique of escaping light into rainbows. In addition, his two flying swords are now scrapped. Even if he learns to fly with swords, he has no swords to control. After all, the chief of the Green Water Ape clan is equivalent to the initial stage of the Purple Mansion cultivation of the human race. Chen Daoxuan is a whole realm away from the other party. The fact that he can fight with the other party is already a factor, that his foundation is extremely solid and his sword realm is far beyond that of sword cultivators of the same level. If it were an ordinary sword cultivator, he could at most be invincible in the same level, and it would be impossible for him to cross a major realm and fight with others. Despite this, Chen Daoxuan's hard fight with the chief of the Green Water Ape clan was not without cost. The price he paid was that the Fixu sword and Chengying sword were almost shattered. Thinking of this, he took out the two flying swords from the storage bag. Especially the Fixu sword, it can be said that it has accompanied Chen Daoxuan's entire cultivation career. Even if it is not broken, with the service life of a first level magic weapon, the Fixu sword will not last for more than a few years, and its spiritual charm will gradually dissipate. Looking at the Fixu sword covered with cracks in his hand, Chen Daoxuan's heart flashed a trace of sadness. For a sword cultivator, the damage of a beloved flying sword is always one of the saddest things for a sword cultivator. Chen Daoxuan is no exception. As if sensing the owner's intention, the Fixu sword made a slight sound, but the spiritual light of the sword body flickered, as if the spiritual charm would dissipate at any time. "Old buddy, next, you just rest," he said silently. Chen Daoxuan put the Fixu sword back into the storage bag, and accelerated to fly towards Shuanghu Island. Shuanghu Island port. Chen Daoxuan asked Chen Zhi to build a market town to expand again. With the continuous transportation of materials in the port, this market town is expanding outward in circles like blowing air. Fortunately, Chen Daoxuan greeted Chen Zhi and Chen B Wang. Let them plan the various constructions of the market town in advance. Therefore, Chen Daoxuan looked over at this time. The whole market town was messy but not chaotic. Compared with Changping County, where the Chen family has the most people, it exudes more vitality. Chen Daoxuan knew that this was an economic leap brought about by trade. The material basis determines the superstructure. This principle is also universal in the world of cultivation. Only when the economy develops well, the Chen family will become stronger and stronger. Although this world is dominated by cultivators, the largest number is still ordinary people. For example, the Zhao family has a population of tens of millions. It is almost equivalent to a medium-sized country in the previous life. So many people. The resources consumed and produced every day are massive. Although these resources are not used by monks and are not valued, they are necessities for ordinary people to survive. In the Chen family, this part of the work has always been managed by Chen Zhi, the magistrate of Changping County. In the future, Chen Daoxuan will transfer this part of the work to the newly established Ministry of Civil Affairs of the Chen family for unified management. After watching the busy ordinary clansmen for a while, Chen Daoxuan's mood improved slightly. He used the wind control technique and flew towards the Chen family's spiritual vein. Before flying to the Chen family's spiritual vein, Chen Daoxuan's spiritual sense swept. He actually found that his 13th uncle was already teaching in the clan school. In the class of Changping No. 1 Zhuxan Primary School, Chen Zian stood in front of the blackboard, explained to everyone the various barriers of return to the origin gong and understand. However, this group of Fu generation clansmen are just 5 years old, and many people can't even recognize all the characters. Learning return to the origin gong gave Chen Zian a headache. He only now realized how talented Chen Daoxuan was back then. No matter what, he would learn it once and understand it at a glance, and he studied hard and practiced hard. He is a natural talent for cultivation. Thinking of Chen Daoxuan, Chen Zian was distracted for a moment. This kid should have succeeded in building his foundation. Although he was sure that Chen Daoxuan would succeed in building his foundation, since he hadn't come back for more than a month, it was impossible for Chen Zian to say that he was not worried at all. At this moment, Uncle 13. A familiar voice came to Chen Zian's ears. Hearing this familiar voice, Chen Zian turned his head and looked out the window. A familiar figure appeared in front of him, smiling brilliantly. Chapter 133 Industrial Thought. Chuanghu Island. Changping No. 1 Zhuxan Primary School. In the classroom of Grade 1, Class 1. Chen Daoxuan stood on the podium, looking at the crowd of Fu clan members in front of him, and said with a smile, "You have all learned some basic knowledge of refining from teacher Daochu, right?" "Yes." In the classroom, the Chen family student said loudly. "Then in your opinion, what is the purpose of refining?" Hearing this question, the students in the class whispered, not knowing how to answer. After a while, a little boy about 1.2 meters tall raised his hand. "Philae, tell me." Chen Daoxuan pointed at the little boy who raised his hand and said, "Teacher, I think the purpose of refining is to enhance the strength of the cultivators and help them survive the disasters during their cultivation." "Very good, sit down." Chen Daoxuan looked around. "Does anyone else have a different idea?" At this time, a little girl stood up and said crisply, "Teacher, I think refining is to make money." Ha 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 ha. Everyone in the classroom laughed. "Stop laughing. Stop laughing. What's so funny?" The little girl was so anxious that she almost cried when she saw everyone laughing at her. "Okay, stop laughing." Chen Daoxuan made a stop gesture, and the laughter gradually stopped. After all, the person in front of him was not only their teacher, but also the young patriarch of the Chen family. "Fuan, your answer is not bad. Sit down." The little girl sat down angrily. Chen Daoxuan glanced at everyone, and then smiled. "In fact, what Philae and Fuan said just now are not wrong. We refiners refine weapons to earn spirit stones, and buy cultivation resources. Ordinary cultivators buy magic tools to enhance their own strength and resist the risks during cultivation. There is no contradiction between the two." Chen Daoxuan paused, "But there is a problem, that is, in the Wangxing Sea, ordinary casual cultivators often have spirit stones, but they can't buy satisfactory magic tools. Why is this?" "Teacher, I know this, because there are too few refiners." "I know, because magic tools are too expensive. Ordinary casual cultivators can't afford it." This time, everyone started talking about various reasons. But to sum up, it's nothing more than that there are few weapon refiners and magic weapons are expensive. Then do you know why there are few weapon refiners? It's because the cost of training a weapon refiner is too high, and small families can't afford it. Chen Fue answered. Yes. Chen Daoxuan nodded. Small families can't afford to train weapon refiners, because the profit earned from refining is too low, and casual cultivators can't afford to buy magic weapons, because the price of magic weapons is too expensive. One side dislikes the low profit, and the other side can't afford it. In fact, both sides are not wrong. What's wrong? The problem is that our efficiency in refining magic weapons is too low, and our productivity in producing magic weapons is too low. Chen Daoxuan looked at everyone. Therefore, the lesson I will teach you today is to explain how to improve the efficiency of refining magic weapons. After speaking, Chen Daoxuan wrote a few big words on the blackboard. Industrialized refining thoughts. The students in the audience followed and read word by word. Industrial zone. Hongmeng Flying Sword Factory. As summer approaches, the weather is getting hotter and hotter. Even with Chen Daoxuan's Immortal Cultivation, he felt that he could not bear the high temperature in the factory. Director Chen Daoxuan was wiping his sweat, and a familiar voice made him look up. Young clan leader. Chen Daoxuan saw Chen Daoxuan. His face was happy at first, and then he bowed to Chen Daoxuan. After the bow, Chen Daoxuan stood up and smiled. Young clan leader, are you here to inspect the situation in the factory? Yes. Speaking of which, Chen Daoxuan has not been to the Hongmeng Flying Sword Factory for a long time. In the past 2 years, he has been busy with his foundation building and the education problems of the Chen family. Now that the foundation building is successful, the education problems of the Chen family have been temporarily solved. He finally took the time to inspect the situation in the factory. Young clan leader, please come in. Chen Daoxuan immediately made a gesture of invitation. Chen Daoxuan followed Chen Daoxuan into the factory. Compared with the one soul melting furnace, when it was first built, the current Hongmeng Flying Sword Factory has increased the number of soul melting furnaces to 9. Of course, this does not mean that the output of Hongmeng Flying Sword has increased 9 times. The reason is that Chen Daoxuan, Chen Daochu, and Chen Daolian cannot spend the whole day refining instruments in the Rainbow Sound Flying Sword Factory. Chen Daochuan needs no introduction. He has been following Chen Zion to learn how to manage the Chen family's magic weapon shop. Now he can manage the magic weapon shop in Guanghan Prefecture's Sangxi market alone. Chen Zion's return to teach proves that Chen Daoxuan has the ability to be independent. What makes Chen Daoxuan even happier is that Chen Daoxuan did not slow down his own practice because of managing the magic weapon shop. Although Chen Daoxuan's spiritual roots are not as good as Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian, he is also a cultivator with medium spiritual roots. Therefore, in the past few years, Chen Daoxuan's cultivation has reached the 6th level of key refining, and he is only one step away from breaking through the late stage of key refining. Looking closely, the changes in the Chen family in the past few years are really huge. Not only did Chen Daoxuan successfully build his foundation and become a cultivator in the foundation building period, but other Dao generation cultivators have also grown up. Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian, as cultivators of upper spiritual roots like Chen Daoxuan, practiced hard and had sufficient resources, so their cultivation progress was not slower than Chen Daoxuan at all. In fact, because they had sufficient cultivation resources from the beginning, their cultivation speed was faster than Chen Daoxuan. The two of them are now at the 9th level of key refining. They are in the state of polishing their own true key. As long as the true key is polished into a harmonious whole, they can try to build a foundation. In addition to these 3 people, the other 6 Dao generation cultivators are only lower spiritual root cultivators, and only 3 have just reached the 4th level of key refining. The rest are at the 3rd level of key refining. But no matter what, the Chen family is much stronger than it was 5 years ago when there were only 2 cultivators, Chen Zion and Chen Daoxuan. Especially with the first batch of Fu generation cultivators entering the clan school. According to Chen Daoxuan's decision, after 1 year of basic education, the Fu generation clan members will be allowed to take Tang Maiden to help them open up the meridians throughout the body, saving a lot of time for cultivation. But There are 108 food generation immortal seedlings in the first batch. If all of them take Tang Meidan, more than 50,000 spirit stones will be needed. This does not include the increasing number of food generation cultivators every year. Once these cultivators embark on the path of cultivation, the consumption of spiritual energy and various cultivation resources will be massive. It is simply unrealistic to support so many food generation cultivators with only the current flying sword factory of the Chen family. Whenever he thinks of this, Chen Daoxuan feels a little headache. The family is small and the business is small. He can make all the Dao generation cultivators live a comfortable life by working alone in the factory. But as the family grows stronger, let alone Chen Daoxuan working alone in the flying sword factory, even if all the 8-year-old Dao generation cultivators are driven to the factory, the money earned is far from enough to be consumed by the new generation of cultivators in the family. Chapter 134 Power Problem. In fact, this account is very easy to calculate. There are 108 food generation immortal seedlings in the Chen family who have just reached school age. By next year, these immortal seedlings will become real cultivators and enter the immortal path. At that time, they will need to consume spiritual energy and various cultivation resources. Let's not talk about the spiritual energy issue. Just in terms of cultivation resources, the Chen family will have a total of 118 Dao generation and food generation cultivators next year. Among them, there is one foundation building cultivator and 117 key refining cultivators. With so many people, even if each key refining cultivator consumes 1000 spiritual stones of cultivation resources per year on average, it will take nearly 120,000 spiritual stones in a year. You know, this is only the first batch of food generation cultivators. There will be more and more food generation cultivators in the Chen family. In other words, the cultivation resources consumed by the Chen family every year will increase by hundreds of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones. This is just the consumption of cultivation resources. In addition to various cultivation resources, the most basic demand for cultivators is naturally spiritual energy, that is, the demand for spiritual veins. The Chen family currently has only one first level spiritual vein. To be honest, the spiritual vein problem is the biggest problem that the Chen family needs to solve urgently. Because Chen Daoxuan is now a foundation building cultivator. If this first level spiritual vein is only used by him, it is barely enough. If more than 100 key refining cultivators of the Chen family and this foundation building cultivator use it together, it will be far from enough. Not to mention a few years later, the Dao generation cultivators will start to build their foundations, and there will be more and more food generation cultivators. The first level spiritual vein is definitely not enough. Then there are two remaining ways. First, increase the number of first level spiritual veins. Second, upgrade the first level spiritual vein to a second level spiritual vein. The first option consumes fewer spiritual stones. After all, a first level spiritual vein is only 100,000 spiritual stones. For the current Chen family, it is just a drizzle. However, there is no problem with the first level spiritual vein for key refining cultivators to practice. But it is not enough for key refining cultivators to build their foundations. The Chen family will not borrow spiritual veins from other families every time a cultivator builds his foundation. It is impossible for others to lend it to you every time. After all, after a second level spiritual vein is used to build a foundation for a cultivator, it basically cannot be used to build a foundation for the next key refining cultivator within 10 years. This is also a huge loss for a family with a second level spiritual vein. Unless it is a third level spiritual vein, it can be used to build a foundation for a key refining cultivator at will. But if you want to cultivate a first level spiritual vein into a third level spiritual vein, it will cost 11 million spiritual stones. This amount of spiritual stones is a huge number, not to mention for the Chen family, even for big families like the Yang family and the Wu family. In a short period of time, the Chen family certainly cannot afford such a huge amount of spiritual stones. Therefore, it can only spend 1 million spiritual stones to temporarily cultivate the family's spiritual vein to the second level. Chen Daoxuan followed Chen Liangaiyu and walked in the factory. Compared with 2 years ago, the internal changes of the Hongmeng Fijian factory are not big. The only change is that there are more apprentices in the factory. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxuan nodded and said, "It seems that you have done a good job in the apprentice system in the past 2 years. It's all thanks to the guidance of the young clan leader. Liangyu dare not take credit for it." Chen Liangyu smiled and bowed his hands, humbly said. The next moment, Chen Daoxuan saw a furnace operator in a production room skillfully taking a spiritual stone that had been exhausted from the Rongling furnace. He pointed to the production room and asked, "Director Chen, how many spiritual stones does our Fijian factory consume every year now?" Chen Liangyu knew. The spiritual stone consumption mentioned by Chen Daoxuan refers to the power consumption of the formation provided by each Rongling furnace for refining spiritual ore. That is, the spiritual stone that had been exhausted by the furnace operator from the bottom of the Rongling furnace. Hearing this question, Chen Liangyu's face suddenly turned bitter, and he complained, "Young patriarch, this soul-melting furnace is good in every way, the only flaw is that it consumes a lot of spirit stones every year. According to the factory's statistics, if each soul-melting furnace works at full capacity, it will consume a spirit stone in less than 3 days. So many?" Chen Daoxuan was surprised. When he worked in the factory before, Chen Liangyu was always in charge of logistics issues, including the spirit stones consumed by the soul-melting furnace. After all, there was only one soul-melting furnace at that time. Even if it consumed a spirit stone every 3 days, it would only consume about 100 spirit stones in a year. With Chen Daoxuan's ability to make money at that time, he really didn't pay much attention to this aspect of consumption. But now there are 9 soul-melting furnaces, and the consumption is much greater. In a year, the consumption of spirit stones alone has reached 1000. If various magic tool factories are built in the industrial zone in the future, and a large number of monks of the Fu generation enter the factory, the number of Chen soul-melting furnaces will increase explosively. Assuming there are 1000 soul-melting furnaces, the annual consumption of spirit stones alone will reach more than 100,000 spirit stones. It is equivalent to swallowing up a spiritual vein in a year. Not to mention that the industrialization process of the Chen family has been further promoted in the future. Chen Daoxuan, who studied engineering in his previous life, knew that the foundation of industrialization is power. Whether it is the steam age or the electrical age, power changes will always sound the clarion call of the industrial revolution. In this life, Chen Daoxuan chose spiritual energy as the power for the refining industry. Because spiritual energy is a clean and almost unlimited energy source. It's just that in the past few years, due to limited conditions, Chen Daoxuan was eager to get the Rongling furnace out, so he didn't care about its power problem. He directly forced the spiritual stone to replace the power source of the Rongling furnace. In fact, whether it is cultivation or using spiritual stones as the power source of the Rongling furnace, it is an extremely wasteful behavior. Although the name of the spiritual stone is spiritual stone, it is not essentially because of the spiritual energy it stores. To be honest, the spiritual energy stored in the spiritual stone is like the difference between a firefly and a bright moon compared to the spiritual energy generated by the spiritual vein. The real preciousness of the spiritual stone, it lies in the trace of good fortune wrapped in the spiritual energy inside it. It is because of this trace of good fortune that the spirit stone can cultivate and promote the spirit vein. And using the spirit stone as a power source, Chen Daoxuan is equivalent to throwing away the most precious trace of good fortune in the spirit stone. In other words, the Rongling furnace has greatly improved production efficiency and increased profits by dozens of times. Otherwise, it can't withstand Chen Daoxuan's wasteful behavior. Inside the factory, Chen Liangyu saw Chen Daoxuan frowning and standing still. He was a little uneasy. He naturally didn't know that Chen Daoxuan was thinking so far. In fact, he didn't understand what industrialization was. He only knew to record the factory's finances and deal with various logistical issues in the factory. Young patriarch? After a while, Chen Liangyu called cautiously. "Oh, it's okay, let's continue." Chen Daoxuan came back to his senses and said with a smile. But in his heart, he had secretly remembered the power problem and was thinking about how to solve it. Chapter 135, Concept of Reiki Network. After inspecting the flying sword factory, Chen Daoxuan had a rough idea of the family's current flying sword production. In general, since Chen Daoxuan and the other two left the factory, several new Dao generation monks have joined the factory. The factory's production has not increased much. In the past, the Hongmeng flying sword factory could produce 900 flying swords per month, but now it can only produce more than 1000 per month, an increase of only more than 10%. The profit generated by this output certainly cannot meet the resource consumption brought about by the growing number of monks in the Chen family. Therefore, expanding the factory is imminent. However, before that, Chen Daoxuan needs to solve the power problem of the factory. The first thing he thought of was the power network in his previous life. On Earth, all countries use wires to transport electricity. Although spiritual energy is completely different from electricity, as a special energy, it must also have a carrier that can carry and transport it. As long as this carrier is found, the problem of spiritual energy transportation can be solved. And the spiritual stone with exhausted spiritual energy, as a special material that can store spiritual energy, should be considered one of this special carrier. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan picked up a spiritual stone that had been depleted of spiritual energy. Who knows? With a slight force from Chen Daoxuan, the spiritual stone that had been depleted of spiritual energy turned directly into a ball of powder and fell to the ground like a stone after being sandified. Powder? Chen Daoxuan picked up a little of the grey-white powder from the ground with his fingers. He enlarged it. These white powders were small sand crystal-like particles, a bit like the sand on the earth. These small particles, each of them seemed to be the size of sand. With a gentle blow, they floated everywhere. Chen Daoxuan frowned and touched his chin. The next second, he used the fire control technique. I saw a ball of white flames burst out from his palm. Because his cultivation level has been raised to the foundation building stage, this fire control technique, which had almost no lethality in the key refining stage, can now pose a fatal threat to the cultivators in the key refining stage. This is a terrifying thing about cultivators with high cultivation levels. It is obviously the same spell, but when used by a high level cultivator, it can pose a fatal threat to a low level cultivator. While controlling the flame, he placed the grey-white powder under the flame. Soon, the grey-white powder turned into a ball of white liquid. Chen Daoxuan knew that this was the result of the grey-white powder being melted by high temperature. Then, he controlled his true essence and pulled the grey-white liquid into a long line as thick as a little finger. It was called a long line, but in fact, the line was less than 20 centimeters. There was no other way. A fist-sized spirit stone turned into powder, and at most it could only make such a long line. But for Chen Daoxuan's experiment, it was enough. After the long line cooled and solidified, he used his true essence to control the spiritual energy in the spirit pond and infused it into one end of the long line. Under the pressure of Chen Daoxuan's true essence, the spiritual energy easily rushed from one end of the long line to the other. And, under Chen Daoxuan's perception, there was almost no consumption. It really works. Chen Daoxuan was slightly happy. He squeezed the grey-white long wire in his hand. It was soft, and not as hard as the metal wire in his previous life. Instead, it was a bit like rubber wrapped around the wire. I didn't expect that the powder formed after the spirit stone exhausted its spiritual energy would become a rubber-like substance after being melted and solidified at high temperature. Chen Daoxuan said with surprise in his eyes. In this way, the problem of spiritual energy transportation is half solved. The reason why it is half is because Chen Daoxuan knows that in order for spiritual energy to flow, in addition to the transport carrier that can transport it, it also needs a power to push it. On Earth, this power is called voltage. Here, Chen Daoxuan will call it spiritual pressure. The spiritual pressure here is not the same concept as the spiritual pressure of the feedback system of the wrangling furnace. It refers to the pressure that can make the spiritual energy move in the spiritual line network. Unfortunately, Chen Daoxuan experimented for a long time, but to no avail. However, this experiment is probably the fastest progress he has made. Unlike the past, whether it was the wrangling furnace or the Danshan pressure reducing device, it took him several years. And it was with the help of the state of enlightenment. If there is no epiphany, whether or not there will be any results in this life is a matter of debate. But this time, in less than an incense stick of time, he has already built a carrier spiritual line for the construction of the spiritual energy network. It must be said that sometimes, luck is far more important than strength in research. Chen Daoxuan is a typical example this time. Wangxinghe underwater world. After going through untold hardships, the Sun brothers finally found the location indicated by the black jade card in their hands in a corner of the underwater world of Guanghan Prefecture. Brother, are we there? We are here. The white-faced monk Sun Fu took a look at the surrounding environment and said solemnly, this Shenzhou Immortal Mansion is indeed in an independent secret space as rumored. You protect me, and don't disturb me. Don't worry, brother. The rough man also knew that this was the most critical moment of this trip. If this matter is successful, maybe the two of them can soar into the sky like the Shenzhou Zenran 400 years ago, and in the future, they can travel across the battlefield of Chuan country and achieve the golden Piluaning. If it fails, it will not fail. The rough man's face became firm. In order to find this place and set foot here, they brothers have paid too much over the years. It started from the time he got this black jade token by chance. The two brothers planned for nearly 20 years. Finally found this place. As his thoughts turned, there seemed to be new changes in the white-faced monk. The white-faced monk named Sun Fu exclaimed and said happily, quick, the fairy palace is open. At this time, the rough middle-aged monk saw that a space crack suddenly opened in front of his eldest brother. Along with the surging of this crack, a large amount of extremely pure spiritual energy came out. This kind of pure spiritual energy, not to mention in Guanghan Prefecture, even in the Zhenguan Immortal City on the battlefield of Izumo country, they have never felt it. You know, the 7 Zhenguan Immortal Cities built by Kanyu and Sword Sect on the battlefield of Izumo country are all arranged with spiritual veins above the 5th level. In other words, in this fairy palace secret realm, there is a spiritual vein that is more advanced than the 5th level spiritual vein. We are rich. We are rich. Faced with such shocking wealth, even the cunning white-faced monk couldn't stay calm at this moment. At this moment, the two did not dare to delay and flew directly into the space crack. The next second, the space crack suddenly closed, as if nothing had happened. After the Sun brothers entered the Immortal Mansion, they wandered around the secret realm of the Immortal Mansion for several hours. Only then did they find that it was a little different from what they imagined. Brother, where is the spiritual vein? The white-faced monk also felt that something was wrong. The large amount of pure spiritual energy they had just sensed was not produced by the spiritual vein. It was stored in the rootless duckweed in the secret realm of this Immortal Mansion. Discovering this fact, the two were immediately disappointed. Forget it. Anyway, we are not here for the spiritual vein this time. Let's find the immortal inheritance first. The white-faced monk said in a deep voice. The area of the secret book of this immortal mansion is very large. The two wandered around for several days before they found a palace that seemed to be inhabited by immortals. This palace is extremely majestic and is hundreds of meters high. The two Sun brothers stood in front of the palace like an ant. They tiptoed and pushed open the door of the palace. They walked slowly into it. Entering the palace, they found a corpse sitting in the palace. What kind of corpse is this? Silver hair, golden eyes, jade bones. The body is immortal for billions of years. Although the Sun brothers did not know how many years this corpse was, the moment they saw it, they immediately knelt on the ground unconsciously. That was the respect from the heart of the seeker of the Tao. After seeing the Tao, this kneeling was involuntary, but also from the heart. However, the two did not notice it at all. Not far from the corpse, there was a silver coffin. At this moment, the lid of the coffin moved slightly, but the two were completely attracted by the corpse of the immortal in front of them, and they were unaware of the changes in the coffin. After a long time, the two came back to their senses from the shock. Brother, the corpse of the immortal is here. It is indeed the immortal palace. It is indeed the immortal palace. Hurry up and find the inheritance. The white-faced monk could no longer care about being calm, and said in a hurry. At this time, a cold and terrifying voice, as if it could freeze a person's soul, sounded behind the two of them. Hey, what are you looking for? Who? The white-faced monk Sun Fu turned his head suddenly, but the scene in front of him almost scared him to death. He saw a 10,000-year-old corpse king with black evil spirit and blood wrapped around his body was staring at the two with his green eyes. You are the real person Shenju. As for the famous real person Shenju, even after 400 years, Sun Fu still recognized him from his appearance at a glance. But now the other party has turned into a zombie. You haven't told me yet, what are you looking for? Si estás escuchando esta novela en canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas. Significa que descargaran y sabiran si nos fuso ten invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas ali encontrarás la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos géneros. Te esperamos para sumergirte en mundo de novelas increíbles. Chapter 136 The Yang Family's Invitation. Chuanghu Island. Hanggaim Flying Sword Factory. Chen Daoxuan stood in front of a soul-melting furnace. At this time, this soul-melting furnace had been working for more than 10 hours. Chen Daoxuan swept his spiritual sense, and knew that the several second-level water-attributed spiritual ores in the soul-melting furnace had been refined, and immediately took it out of the furnace. Next, shaping and melting the formation. Chen Daoxuan was already familiar with it. Thanks to the transformation of his true essence and spiritual sense, it was now extremely easy for Chen Daoxuan to refine a second-level top-grade magic weapon. If he didn't have a third-level magic weapon inheritance, with his true essence far exceeding that of a late-stage foundation building cultivator and his spiritual sense comparable to that of a purple mansion cultivator, he could have tried to refine a third-level flying sword. Puff. A mouthful of blood and essence sprayed on the water-attributed flying sword embryo engraved with 18 layers of formation patterns. The next second, the blood and essence and the formation pattern slowly merged into the sword embryo. The flying sword was successfully refined. Immediately, it revolved around Chen Daoxuan like a bird returning to its nest. Looking at the second-grade high-quality flying sword in front of him, Chen Daoxuan took out the broken Fixu sword from his storage bag, then took a look at each one and said, "From now on, I'll call you Fixu." After that, he put the broken Fixu sword back into his storage bag. In the next few days, Chen Daoxuan followed the same method and refined a second-grade high-quality wind attribute flying sword. This wind attribute flying sword was also named Chen Giying sword by him. After refining the two natal flying swords, Chen Daoxuan couldn't wait to practice flying with a sword. Chen Daoxuan had been envious of flying with a sword for a long time. Even before he established his foundation, he had already bought a suitable sword flying technique in Guanghan Prefecture. The name of this escape light is called Sword Light Transforms into Rainbow. It is a very ordinary sword flying technique. But for Chen Daoxuan, who was flying with a sword for the first time, the feeling was definitely different. Because before that, he used the wind controlling technique to fly. Although Chen Daoxuan was able to fly with a sword after the first tempering of his true ki, because at that time his true ki was at least 3 times stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator in the late stage of ki refining. But at that time he was busy with the foundation building. How could he have the time to study flying with a sword? It is precisely because the speed of flying with a sword is extremely fast, far exceeding the wind control technique of the cultivators in the ki refining stage. Therefore, even if there are really foundation building cultivators who can't beat the cultivators in the ki refining stage, the cultivators in the ki refining stage can't do anything to the cultivators in the foundation building stage. After all, the other sword light flashed and directly turned into a light of escape and flew away. The cultivators in the ki refining stage relied on the wind control technique and couldn't even eat dust behind them. In the following days, Chen Daoxuan's life returned to peace again. Since he had just broken through to the foundation building stage, Chen Daoxuan was not in a hurry to practice the foundation building stage skills, but chose to polish the true essence that had just broken through. This point is especially important for sword cultivators. Zhao Mubei Sword Inheritance Jade Slip also mentioned this point. After tempering the true essence, sword cultivators must remember not to rush to practice attribute skills. Instead, you should choose to practice the foundation building period exercises when you have polished the sword essence to the same level as ordinary true essence. Only in this way will it not affect the subsequent practice speed. While the sword will make the true essence stronger after tempering, it will also increase the difficulty of practice. In fact, this principle is basically universal. The top level exercises are powerful, which means that the true essence cultivated is stronger than that of the cultivators of the same level. But at the same time, the difficulty of practicing the top level exercises is also the greatest. The exercises that are simple to practice and powerful can only be found in dreams. Therefore, after the foundation is established, the cultivator needs to be very cautious when choosing to change the practice method, because this will affect the future path of a cultivator. For cultivators, it is not the case that the more powerful the exercises are, the better. Some people have poor aptitude. It is already a fluke to be able to build a foundation. At this time, choosing those powerful exercises will often make it difficult to practice after the foundation is established, or even get stuck in the tragic situation of the early stage of the foundation and not making any progress. At this time, others who choose to practice easy to practice but mediocre skills may have already entered the middle or late stages of foundation building. Even if they are at the same level, others who practice weak skills are not your opponents, but it is not easy for others in the middle stage to beat you in the early stage. More importantly, others will have a better chance of breaking through to the purple mansion than you. This is the most important thing. After all, the primary goal of cultivators' practice is basically to achieve immortality. If it weren't for the heavenly tribulation, no one would choose to practice powerful but difficult skills. Redwood Island. A beam of light instantly broke through the sky and landed on the Seaview Pavilion. Looking at the endless sea, Chen Daoxuan felt very happy. In the past 2 months, in addition to being busy with family affairs, he basically used all his energy to practice the sword light transformed into rainbow escape technique. After 6 sudden realizations, he finally practiced this escape technique to perfection. At this moment, when he used this escape technique, in the eyes of outsiders, he was really as fast as a rainbow light. It was almost not much slower than the escape speed of the Purple Mansion cultivator. The reason why he made such a judgment was that Chen Daoxuan had taken the Zhao family's Lingsu warship and knew how fast the Purple Mansion cultivators were. He felt that his escape speed was no less than the fastest speed of the Lingsu warship. Looking at the scenery on the sea, Chen Daoxuan's sword light rolled up and flew back to Xuanhu Island. In less than a few hundred breaths, Chen Daoxuan's escape light crossed a distance of 400 miles and landed in the spiritual vein of Xuanhu Island. Compared with the past, his escape speed was more than dozens of times faster. Just when he was very excited and had a lot of fun, Chen Zion found him. Lingzhou City has been built. Chen Daoxuan looked at Chen Zion with surprise. Think about it carefully. The Yang family proposed to build Lingzhou City only 2 or 3 years ago. It was so fast. In just 2 or 3 years, a fairy city was built. I just don't know. In order to build Lingzhou Immortal City, what price did Guang'an Immortal Alliance, led by Yang family, pay? Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan smiled and said, since it's built, let's go and see the excitement. Compared with before building the foundation, Chen Daoxuan became much calmer after successfully building the foundation. He knew that all this came from his own strength. In the key refining stage, although he could also be invincible in the key refining stage, in Guang'an Prefecture, being invincible in the key refining stage was far from enough. There were thousands of foundation building cultivators in the Zhao family alone in Guang'an Prefecture, and the number of foundation building cultivators in the entire Guang'an Prefecture, including the scattered cultivators, reached tens of thousands. That's it. Not to mention the scattered foundation building cultivators on the front line of Chuan country. With so many foundation building cultivators, Chen Daoxuan was basically no match for any of them before. But now, as he has forged the strongest foundation of sword cultivation, the realm of swordsmanship has skyrocketed. Chen Daoxuan dare not say that he can match the Purple Mansion cultivators, but among the foundation building cultivators, he basically has no rivals. Look at it this way. In the huge Guang'an Prefecture, the only families that Chen Daoxuan could really take seriously were the Zhao, Yang, Wu, and Zhao families. In fact, apart from the Zhao and Yang families who had Purple Palace cultivators, the Wu and Zhao families only had slightly more Foundation establishment cultivators. And the Foundation establishment cultivators were nothing more than chickens and dogs in front of Chen Daoxuan today. Not worth mentioning. Chapter 137 Guang'an Prefecture Structure. A few months later, a beam of light streaked across the sky. That's Jinwu Island. In the sky, Chen Daoxuan, dressed in white, pointed to the round island below that looked like a sun falling into the sea and introduced it. Yang's Jinwu Island. Chen Daoxuan nodded. I've only heard of it all along, but this is my first time coming here in person. At this point, Chen Daoxuan sighed. Guang'an Prefecture is too big. A cultivator in the key refining stage may not be able to travel all over Guang'an Prefecture, even after sailing for several years. It's not like a cultivator in the Foundation establishment stage who can fly with a beam of light. As he spoke, he looked at Chen Daoxuan and the sword light under his feet with envy. The second level top grade Chengiying sword can emit a sword beam of up to 9 feet long. At this moment, this second level flying sword burst out a sword beam several feet long, wrapping up the two of them and breaking through the sky. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan nodded and said, the escape light of a Foundation building cultivator is indeed much faster than that of a key refining cultivator. The last time I came here, I had to rush here nearly a month in advance. Today, I arrived in less than a few hours. As he spoke, Jinwu Island was getting closer and closer. Chen Daoxuan immediately lowered his escape light and flew towards the newly built Lingzhou Immortal City on Jinwu Island. On the vast plain not far from the harbor on Jinwu Island, a huge immortal city stood here. Although this immortal city is slightly inferior to the Guang'an Prefecture immortal city in scale, the concentration of spiritual energy inside it is not lower than that of Guang'an Prefecture. In fact, because the Guang'an Immortal Alliance has lifted most of the restrictions on spiritual eyes, the concentration of spiritual energy in the entire Lingzhou city is even higher than that of Guang'an Prefecture. Although the scale of Lingzhou city is currently slightly smaller than that of Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City, its popularity does not seem to be low at all. It may be that they knew in advance that Lingzhou city will be completely completed today. Almost all the scattered cultivators who settled in the spiritual veins of Guang'an Immortal Alliance within a radius of 10,000 miles came to show their support. In the past 2 or 3 years, how many scattered cultivators have chosen to settle in the spiritual veins built by Guang'an Immortal Alliance? According to a rough estimate by the Zhao family, at least 30% of the scattered cultivators in the entire Guang'an Prefecture have gone to the spiritual veins of Guang'an Immortal Alliance to settle down. Judging from the total number of millions of scattered cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture, the number of scattered cultivators who went to Lingzhou City today was as high as 1 million. It even exceeded the flow of people in Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City. Approaching Lingzhou City, the number of escape lights in the sky suddenly increased. In the past, when I was in the key refining stage, I always envied these escape lights whizzing through the air. Today, I became one of them. Chen Daoxuan felt very wonderful. As soon as the escape light fell, Chen Daoxuan and Chen Daoxuan landed at the gate of Lingzhou City. Like Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City, Lingzhou City also adopted the method of inner and outer cities. The outer city is an open city where mortals live, which can expand outward all the time. The inner city is where the immortal city is located, built on a third level spiritual vein. The reason for building the city wall is of course not to resist foreign enemies, but only to separate mortals from monks. To a certain extent, it is also a kind of protection for mortals by major forces. Because the power of monks is too strong, mortals are not much different from ants in front of them. If the two are not separated, and immortals and mortals live together completely, mortals can easily be oppressed by monks, or even slaughtered by some monks with bad hearts. In this way, even if the major cultivation forces punish the offending monks afterwards, the losses that have been caused are irreversible. Therefore, the major cultivation forces will not mix monks and mortals together when building immortal cities, even if they are from their own families. At the gate of Lingzhou City, compared with the endless city wall, the gate of Lingzhou City is also very wide. Visually, it is at least several dozen feet wide and nearly 100 feet high, not smaller than the gate of Guang'an Prefecture. Moreover, there are 9 such gates in the entire Lingzhou City. Such a huge wall and a huge gate can only be built by the power of cultivators. Ordinary mortals, even those in the innate stage, cannot build it at all. Chen Daoxuan looked at the long queue of key refining cultivators waiting at the gate of the city. He and Chen Daoxuan stood at the gate dedicated to the Foundation establishment cultivators, where there were only a few people, and retracted their gaze. "Senior, please come in." At the gate, a cultivator of the late key refining stage of the Yang family bowed respectfully to Chen Daoxuan. "Yes." Chen Daoxuan nodded, and walked into Lingzhou City with Chen Daoxuan with their heads held high. After entering Lingzhou City, the two walked for several hours. Only then did they feel the prosperity of Lingzhou City. Although Lingzhou City had just been built, in order to make Lingzhou City popular, the various families of Guanghanzai and Meng spared no effort. They all sold all kinds of resources in their stocks. For a while, all kinds of goods were on display in the shops of Lingzhou City. It was not inferior to the scene when Guanghan Prefecture Zion Cheng held an auction. On the street, pedestrians and monks were shoulder to shoulder, and it was crowded. Chen Daoxuan felt like he was rushing to the train station during the spring festival in his previous life. However, after sensing his cultivation, none of the cultivators dared to squeeze him. A vacuum layer formed around him. Chen Daoxuan knew that this was a ore of low-level cultivators for high-level cultivators. This ore came from the power of high-level cultivators to completely crush low-level cultivators. While the two were strolling, Chen Daoxuan and Chen Daoxuan started chatting. Chen Daoxuan sighed. It seems that Lingzhou City has really become a force to be reckoned with. Yes, Chen Daoxuan nodded. Although he had expected the achievements of Lingzhou City, he did not expect it to come so quickly and so fiercely. The establishment of Lingzhou City also had a greater impact on Guanghan Prefecture Immortal City than expected. Now, I don't know how the Zhao family will deal with it. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan couldn't help but frown. The dispute between the Zhao family and the Guanghan Immortal Alliance is undoubtedly the last thing the Chen family, as a newly rising foundation building family, wants to see. If the two tigers really want to fight, it will not be without any benefit to the Chen family. It depends on the ability of the person at the helm of the Chen family to jump left and right. In this regard, Chen Daoxuan has also seen how those small countries survive in the cracks of big countries in his previous life. He is not without experience. Of course, the current Chen family, relying on only Chen Daoxuan, is not weak among all the foundation building families in Guanghan Prefecture. A sword cultivator who can be called invincible in the foundation building period. Even the newly promoted Purple Mansion family like the Yang family has to pay attention. In terms of family background, Chen Daoxuan roughly divides Guanghan Prefecture into 5 levels. The first level is naturally the Zhao family. All the families in the entire Guanghan Prefecture combined cannot compete with the Zhao family. The second tier is the newly promoted Purple Mansion families and foundation building families with deep heritage, such as the Yang family, the Wu family, and the Zhao family. The third tier is the ordinary foundation building families. These foundation building families have about dozens to hundreds of foundation building cultivators, and the entire family has thousands or nearly 10,000 cultivators. The fourth tier is those small families that have become foundation building families by chance. For example, 1 or 2 people in some key refining families have broken through to the foundation building stage, or a small family with only dozens or hundreds of key refining cultivators has broken through to the foundation building stage in the battlefield of Chuan State. If the patriarch of the Mo family had entered the foundation building stage, it would probably be classified into this tier. The last tier, the 5th tier, is all the key refining families. Of course, there are also strong and weak key refining families. The strong ones are like the Mo family back then, with nearly 100 key refining cultivators in the family, and even a patriarch close to the foundation building stage. The weak ones are like the Chen family more than 5 years ago, with only 1 or 2 key refining cultivators. If the current Chen family is to be classified, it can probably be classified into the 3rd tier. That is to say, it is an ordinary foundation building family with dozens or even hundreds of foundation building cultivators in the family. Because from the perspective of strength, Chen Daoxuan alone is enough to match the dozens or even hundreds of foundation building cultivators on the opposite side. From the perspective of Foundation, the Chen family's fourth-generation cultivators are growing like mushrooms after rain. The family's profits earned in the magic weapon market every year are also constantly setting new highs. From this perspective, the Chen family can even be ranked at the forefront of the third-tier families. Of course, although the Chen family has this strength, its current reputation is far from matching its strength. The reasons are very complicated. There are reasons why the Chen family keeps a low profile and focuses on development. There is also the reason why Chen Daoxuan successfully built his foundation and became the second sword cultivator in Guanghan Prefecture after Zhao Mubei, but it is not known to the outside world. Chapter 138 Provocation. It's useless to think too much. Let's go. Chen Zion shook his head. Okay. Chen Daoxuan nodded, and then the sword light rolled up and immediately took Chen Zion to fly high in the sky. There is a big difference between Lingzhou City and Guanghan Prefecture Immortal City. That is, its forbidden air formation only works for key refining stage cultivators and is useless for foundation establishment stage cultivators. Therefore, in Lingzhou City, you can often see a series of escape lights flying over people's heads. In Guanghan Prefecture Immortal City, not to mention foundation establishment stage cultivators, even purple mansion cultivators have to walk honestly. Of course, before Guanghan Prefecture, except for the Zhao family, no other family had purple mansion cultivators, so there was no problem of prohibiting the purple mansion cultivators from flying. Lingzhou City did this. It undoubtedly made the foundation establishment stage cultivators of Guanghan Prefecture have a good impression. Foundation establishment stage cultivators are used to flying with escape lights, and asking them to walk is really a bit difficult for a while. However, due to the rules of the Zhao family, the cultivators also have difficulties. Moreover, the key refining stage cultivators did not object to Lingzhou City's move. After all, in the world of immortal cultivation, the idea that cultivation determines status is deeply rooted in people's minds. The seniority of two cultivators who don't know each other depends entirely on their cultivation. Even though Chen Daoxuan is only 21 years old now, a 100-year-old key refining cultivator who doesn't know him has to call him senior when he sees him. This senior has nothing to do with age, but is a respectful title for pioneers on the road of cultivation. The core hall of Guanghan Immortal Alliance is set above Lingzhou City. It is the same as the floating fairy palace that Chen Daoxuan had envisioned. Guanghan Immortal Alliance used a floating formation to suspend a sacred mountain in the air. The sacred mountain was covered with mist and clouds, and a palace was looming inside, like a blessed land for immortals. Not to mention how much effort Guanghan Immortal Alliance had put into getting a sacred mountain to the sky. Just for its appearance, Chen Daoxuan had to give it a full score. At least he was really shocked after seeing this floating sacred mountain. Swish. Chen Daoxuan and Chen Zion's escape light landed at the foot of the sacred mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a staircase rose up, like a ladder to heaven. At the end of the staircase, there was a faint palace complex. It really looked like a blessed land of immortals. Chen Daoxuan and Chen Zion looked at each other, walked to the Guanghan Immortal League monk who was in charge of reception at the foot of the mountain, and bowed and said, "I'm a member of the Chen family of Shuanghu Island. I'm invited by the Yang family to attend the completion ceremony of Lingzhou City." As he said that, Chen Daoxuan handed over the invitation. Shuanghu Island, the waiter in charge of reception, was a foundation building monk. He looked at Chen Daoxuan with surprise, then opened the invitation handed by Chen Daoxuan and nodded. "Daoyao, please go up the mountain." "Thank you." Chen Daoxuan nodded. "Wait." As soon as Chen Daoxuan raised his foot, he was stopped by the other party. "Daoyao, please forgive me. This celebration is a banquet for major foundation building families invited by our Guanghan Immortal League. Please stay." After saying that, he stopped in front of Chen Zion and shook his head slightly. Chen Daoxuan's face suddenly turned cold when he heard this. "What do you mean, Daoist? Are you trying to make things difficult for us?" "Fellow Daoist, please forgive me." The other party just said this and did not explain any more. But his attitude was very firm. That is, he would not let Chen Zion pass. Just when Chen Daoxuan was about to turn hostile, a charming voice sounded from the front. "Isn't this Daoist Chen?" Hearing the voice, Chen Daoxuan turned his head and saw Yang Gangwen in front of the left. His face was still cold. He was invited by the Yang family to participate in the Lingzhou City celebration, but he was made difficult by the cultivator in charge of welcoming him. Anyone would be unhappy. Fairy Yang, long time no see. Chen Daoxuan bowed with a stiff face. Sorry, Yang Gangwen said with a smile. I was too busy with this celebration, and I forgot to say hello to Daoist Wu. Yang Gangwen immediately changed the subject and said, I haven't seen you for several years. Daoist Chen is not only energetic, but also successfully built his foundation. It is really a cause for celebration. As she said, she introduced Chen Daoxuan. This is Taoist Wu from Fengwu Island, and this is Taoist Chen from Xuanhu Island. Gongwan apologizes to you two again. It's all my fault for being careless. I almost made you two unhappy. As she spoke, Yang Gongwan bowed to Chen Daoxuan and the Wu family cultivator. It has come to this point. If Chen Daoxuan pursues it further, it will seem that he is being unreasonable. The Wu family cultivator seemed to be quite fascinated by Yang Gongwan, and there was a trace of greed in the depths of his eyes when he looked at her. Then he apologized to Chen Daoxuan. So Taoist was invited by the Yang family. I was rude just now. After that, she pretended to be an orangutan and arched her hands to Chen Daoxuan. No problem. Chen Daoxuan replied coldly. After that, Chen Daoxuan and Chen Zion walked up the mountain together. Chen Daoyao, how about going together? Yang Gongwan said, floating towards Chen Daoxuan. On the stairs, the few of them remained silent for a long time. Chen Daoxuan said quietly, Fairy Yang has a good way. Who knows that? After hearing this, Yang Gangwen's pretty face was full of confusion and asked, what does Chen Daoyao mean? Nothing, I just slipped my tongue. After that, along the way, Chen Daoxuan and Chen Zion walked towards the palace on Lingshan Mountain without saying a word. Yang Gangwen also lowered her head silently, wondering what she was thinking. In the palace complex of Lingshan Mountain, Yang Gangwen walked to a pavilion on the back mountain. In the pavilion, an old man with white hair and a childlike face stared at the spirit fish in the spirit pond in a daze, wondering what he was thinking. Grandfather. Seeing Yang Linyuan, Yang Gangwen hurriedly bowed. Yes. Hearing this call, Yang Linyuan sighed, then smiled and said, Wana, you are not busy outside. Why did you think of coming here to find me? Who knows? Hearing this, Yang Gangwen looked a little aggrieved and said, Grandfather, Wana just did something wrong. As she said that, she told Yang Linyuan what had just happened. After listening, Yang Linyuan shook his head and sighed. You are clever, but not wise enough. He paused. Why do you need to stir up the relationship between the Wu and Chen families? With conflicts of interest, they will naturally be at odds in the future. Wana knows her mistake. Yang Gangwen lowered her head. Seeing his granddaughter like this, Yang Linyuan couldn't bear to blame her and comforted her, but this move can be regarded as planting a thorn in the hearts of the Chen and Wu families, which is not completely a bad thing. Although she knew that her grandfather was comforting her, Yang Gangwen felt much better after hearing this comfort. Compared with the little thing Yang Gangwen said, Yang Linyuan felt as if a heavy stone was pressing on his heart at this moment. He had a vague feeling. Perhaps in the near future Guanghan Prefecture will really change. It is not just the completion of Lingzhou City that has caused a huge impact on Guanghan Prefecture's Ironcheng. It was also because of a tragic incident that happened to the Wu family 2 months ago. Thinking of this incident, Yang Linyuan didn't even have the mood to host the Lingzhou City celebration. But he thought about it. In Guanghan Prefecture, except for a few families, no family had the strength to do such a thing. Among these families, the only one that had both strength and motivation was the Zhao family. Chapter 139, Trouble. Dang. 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 The melodious bells rang out on the Lingshan mountain of Guanghan Xianmeng. It indicated that the celebration was about to begin. Many foundation building monks gathered together, standing in the square in front of the main palace, chatting with each other in groups of 3 or 5. Most foundation building monks usually practice in their own families, and they are not as likely to show up as key refining monks. Therefore, this Lingzhou City completion celebration is also a rare gathering of foundation building monks. As a new foundation building family, the Chen family is not well known among the many foundation building families in Guanghan Prefecture, so no one took the initiative to come forward to talk to them. Brother Chen. Just as he thought that no one would talk to him, he heard a call from behind. Turning around, a young figure appeared in front of Chen Daoxuan. This person looked to be in his 20s, with peach blossom eyes and a slightly frivolous smile on his lips. Who else could it be but Zhao Siliang, the son of Zhao Mucheng? Brother Zhao. Chen Daoxuan immediately reacted and bowed to Zhao Siliang to congratulate him. Congratulations, Brother Zhao, on your success in building your foundation. Haha, congratulations. Chen Daoxuan was quite surprised that Zhao Siliang had successfully built his foundation. However, when he last saw him, Zhao Siliang was already at the 9th level of key refining, so it was not too surprising that he had successfully built his foundation. Zhao Siliang greeted Chen Daoxuan and quickly saluted Chen Ziyan, saying, "Siliang meets Uncle Chen." Good. Chen Ziyan smiled and stroked his beard, saying, "From your appearance, I guess you came with Brother Zhao. Uncle Zhao is here too?" Hearing this, Zhao Siliang nodded. "My father is indeed here." At this point, Zhao Siliang's words were a little evasive. Chen Daoxuan didn't care and smiled. "In that case, we should pay a visit together." Zhao Mucheng helped the Chen family a lot back then. If it weren't for Zhao Mucheng's influence, the Chen family would never have thought of occupying the magic weapon market in the Guanghan Prefecture Sangxiu market so easily. Since we have met this time, it is reasonable to go forward and say hello. When Zhao Siliang heard this, he hesitated for a while, then nodded and said, "Then I will take you to there, please." Under Zhao Siliang's guidance, Chen Daoxuan and Chen Ziyan met Zhao Mucheng and his patrol fleet of monks. Chen Daoxuan was quite familiar with these people. After all, he had drunk a lot of wine with them. Uncle Zhao. Seeing Zhao Mucheng, Chen Daoxuan smiled and bowed. Daoxuan. Seeing Chen Daoxuan, the worry on Zhao Mucheng's face quickly subsided, and he looked at him in surprise and said, "Have you established your foundation? Lucky." Chen Daoxuan smiled and bowed. Brother Zhao. Brother Chen. After greeting Chen Ziyan, Zhao Mucheng continued, "I didn't expect that in less than 4 years, you have actually cultivated from the 7th level of key refining to the foundation establishment stage. I'm afraid you will have a chance to reach the Purple Palace in the future. Uncle Zhao, you are too kind." Chen Daoxuan bowed his hands. "Brother Siliang is a dragon among men. You can expect to reach the Purple Palace in the future." Zhao Mucheng was immediately relieved to hear Chen Daoxuan praising his son. In his heart, it was really beyond his expectation that his beloved son could build a foundation. Originally, he thought that he would be satisfied if he could use resources to help his son reach the foundation establishment stage within 10 years. Unexpectedly, in just over 3 years, Zhao Siliang actually took a foundation establishment pill himself, secretly built a foundation without telling him, and succeeded. Every time he thought of this, Zhao Mucheng felt proud of his son, but also felt a little scared. Although the success rate of building a foundation with a foundation establishment pill is as high as 70% to 80%, once the foundation fails, the Danshan key C is broken, and the person will either die or be disabled, and the consequences are very serious. But fortunately, Zhao Siliang succeeded. Of course, Zhao Mucheng knew Zhao Siliang's talent. If nothing unexpected happened, being able to build a foundation would be the limit of his life. Purple Mansion and the like, without a great opportunity, would be nothing but a dream. Uncle Zhao, are you here to celebrate the completion of Lingzhou City? Chen Daoxuan was quite surprised. Logically, the Zhao family should be furious when Lingzhou City was built. How could they still have the leisure to send people to celebrate? This was obviously not the Zhao family's style of doing things. Chen Ziyan coughed when he heard this. Chen Daoxuan turned his head and saw Chen Ziyan shaking his head at him. Brother Chen, you don't have to cover for me. Zhao Mucheng sighed and smiled bitterly. I'm here this time to apologize to the Wu family on behalf of the Zhao family. Apologize to the Wu family? Chen Daoxuan became more and more confused as he listened. Obviously, he had been living in Shuanghu Island for some time, and something happened in Guanghan Prefecture that he didn't know about. Alas. Zhao Mucheng sighed. Speaking of which, it's also our bad luck. 2 months ago, the Wu family had a cargo ship full of second level magic tools and spiritual ores transported to Guang'an Prefecture, but something went wrong on the way. What does the Wu family's cargo ship transporting magic tools have to do with you? Chen Daoxuan frowned. Daoxuan, you don't know, it's not just the cargo ship transporting magic tools. Because the Wu family's cargo is very valuable, they sent a large number of cultivators to escort it. There are 136 foundation building cultivators in the Wu family alone. What? Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan could no longer suppress his surprise. More than 100 foundation building cultivators died in Guang'an Prefecture, and even their bodies could not be found. This kind of thing is too sensational. More than 100 foundation building cultivators. Even if the Purple Mansion cultivators personally took action, it is still a matter of whether they can defeat the opponent. Even if they are not the opponents of the Purple Mansion cultivators, so many foundation building cultivators turned into escape lights and fled. It is not impossible that none of them could escape, right? Although the Purple Mansion is strong, it is not strong enough to kill more than 100 foundation building cultivators in a single wave of its hand. Chen Daoxuan had fought with a Purple Mansion cultivator at least once, and he knew very well that Purple Mansion cultivators were not that strong. Especially since the Wu family was good at refining weapons, their foundation building cultivators must have spiritual armor to protect themselves. In this case, it was obvious that it was not something that ordinary Purple Mansion cultivators could do to prevent any Wu family foundation building cultivators from escaping. Could it be a giant cultivator? Chen Daoxuan was shocked by his own speculation. Impossible. But then, Chen Daoxuan shook his head again. Not to mention that there were no giant cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. Even if there were giant cultivators from outside Kangzhou passing by Guang'an Prefecture, it was impossible for them to attack a group of foundation building cultivators for no reason. Wouldn't this be giving a handle to Kainiuan Sword Sect? If this matter was really exposed, Kainiuan Sword Sect would not be able to fail to find out. You know, Kainiuan Sword Sect has a spell called Time Rewind. If you want to escape their pursuit, you must use special means to disrupt the secrets of heaven. Obviously, ordinary giant cultivators cannot have this ability. After thinking about it, Chen Daoxuan couldn't come up with a conclusion. But, what does this have to do with you, Uncle Zhao? Chen Daoxuan was very puzzled. Hearing this, Zhao Xiliang on the side sighed and said helplessly, my father happened to be responsible for the safety of the route that the Wu family cultivators were sailing on that day. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan finally figured out the cause and effect of the matter. More than 100 foundation building cultivators of the Wu family died, and a ship of magic tools and spiritual ores were lost. Zhao Mucheng of the Zhao family happened to be responsible for the safety of the route that the Wu family sailed on at that time. This matter has caused a sensation in Guang'an Prefecture. Now, all the big and small families in the Xianxing of Guang'an Prefecture are doubting the ability of my Zhao family to protect the safety of the route. Zhao Mucheng said this and clenched his fists tightly. In fact, he also knew that it was fortunate that they were not there that day, otherwise there would only be a few more bodies. A person that even the more than 100 foundation building cultivators of the Wu family can't handle. What's the use of the more than 20 foundation building cultivators on his Lingsu warship? That's what happened. But other families are panicking. Because other families now all suspect that this was done by the Zhao family. Just because the Wu family is one of the main members of the Guang'an Immortal Alliance. In order to retaliate against the Wu family, the Zhao family killed all the cultivators who transported goods from his family, killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Forced all families to withdraw from the Guang'an Immortal Alliance. In fact, anyone with a brain would know that it couldn't be done by the Zhao family. Because of the existence of the Kainiuan Sword Sect, the Zhao family would never take such a big risk to do this. But the problem is, if it's not the Zhao family who has the strength and motivation to do this, at present, this matter has not been spread among the casual cultivators, otherwise the impact will be even worse. The Zhao family's appearance is so ugly, who will dare to go to Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City in the future? It's not that no one has thought about whether it was directed and acted by the people of the Guang'an Immortal Alliance. But then he thought, who would sacrifice the lives of more than 100 foundation building cultivators for acting? That's nearly a quarter of the Wu family's foundation building cultivators. The Wu family was also completely damaged because of this incident, and it may never be able to restore its former glory in the future. Just as the few people were talking, the celebration of Lingzhou City began. In the square, Yang Linyuan, dressed in a grey Taoist robe, stepped on the auspicious cloud and flew up. Chen Daoxuan knew that the auspicious cloud under his feet was not a real auspicious cloud, but a special flying magic weapon. But at this moment, it was displayed in front of everyone, and it embodied the words immortal style and Taoist bones to the fullest. Sure enough, everyone was attracted by the eyes of the ancestor Yang, and they all quieted down. Thank you all Taoist friends for coming to the opening ceremony of my Lingzhou Immortal City. Today, on the auspicious cloud, Yang Linyuan smiled and talked freely. I hope that in the future, we can work together to make Lingzhou City more prosperous. After a simple speech, Yang Linyuan was about to leave, but unexpectedly, a voice suddenly sounded. Wait a minute, everyone. The speaker was an old man who had completed the foundation building. The old man had a broad face, and a wide nose, and a solemn expression. He looked majestic without being angry. Coupled with his tall stature, he looked quite oppressive. Seeing this old man, Yang Linyuan sighed, and said in a voice transmission, Brother Wu, how about we discuss this matter later? I, Yang, swear here that I will seek justice for the more than 100 cultivators of your Wu family. Hearing this, Wu Guanggai shook his head. Brother Yang, my Wu family wants this justice today. As he said this, his face was miserable. Otherwise, the loyalty of my Wu family will be completely dispersed. Chapter 140, Tensions. Seeing the figure of this old man, all the cultivators who knew the inside story stopped. Wu Guanggai looked at everyone and stopped, bowed to everyone, and said, thank you all for your righteousness. I, Wu, would like to thank you all. As he said that, Wu Guanggai bowed to all the cultivators present. At this time, a cultivator off the scene said, don't worry, fellow Daoist Wu, the cultivators of Guanghan Prefecture are not so cowardly. While speaking, the rough-faced late-stage foundation building cultivator had a calm expression. Obviously, this was a foundation building casual cultivator. Thank you, fellow Daoist Lei, for your righteousness. Wu Guanggai obviously recognized the casual cultivator who spoke, and bowed. Everyone, 2 months ago, 136 people from my Wu family transported a ship of second-level magic tools and spiritual ore to Guanghan Prefecture Immortal City, but encountered an accident on the way. I would like to ask everyone present, how could more than 100 foundation building cultivators with spiritual armors die inexplicably on the way to Guanghan Prefecture? Who in our Guanghan Prefecture has this strength? This courage? Wu Guanggai's voice was deafening, and the whole person was furious. Zhao Mucheng's chest rose and fell when he heard this. But he knew that at this moment, whether for the family or for himself, he had to stand up. Brother Wu, if you have something to say, please say it clearly, don't make indirect accusations. Okay. Wu Guanggai shouted, I suspect your Zhao family. All this was done by your Zhao family. He stood in the air, pointed his finger directly at Zhao Mucheng's nose, and said loudly. At this moment, the hearts of all the cultivators present were tightened. The Wu family is the pillar family of the Guanghan Immortal Alliance, and the other one represents the Zhao family, the overlord of Guanghan Prefecture. Brother Wu, do you know what you are talking about? Zhao Mucheng's mood suddenly calmed down at this moment, staring at the other party intently. Of course I know what I'm talking about. Wu Guanggai shouted, Brother Yang told me to endure it, and the strength of my Wu family also told me to endure it. But I'm the patriarch of tens of thousands of cultivators in the Wu family. More than 100 cultivators of my Wu family died inexplicably. I can't stand this, and tens of thousands of cultivators in my Wu family can't stand it. Wu Guanggai, you and I went to the Zenanguan battlefield together back then. You should know who I am. If I tell you that this matter was not done by my Zhao family, do you believe it? Zhao Mucheng said seriously. Hearing this, Wu Guanggai's eyes flickered, and it was obvious that he was extremely uneasy at the moment. Okay. Wu Guanggai nodded. I believe you for now. Then tell me, as the deacon of the Wu family's patrol fleet, why did you not rescue more than 100 monks of my Wu family and know nothing about it? Hearing this, Zhao Muchen was completely speechless. No matter what happened, he could not escape the crime of dereliction of duty. Even if the matter was settled, his position in the Zhao family would plummet in the future. Brother Wu, I'm sorry. Zhao Muchen cupped his hands, and the whole person seemed to have aged a little. Seeing the appearance of this old brother who was in the same defense zone with him, Wu Guangai opened his mouth and couldn't say a word. After a while, Wu Guangai took a deep breath and said with red eyes, "It's useless for you to apologize to me. You are not qualified. I want Zhao Mubei to apologize. I want Zhao Mubei to swear in person that this matter was not done by the Zhao family." Boom. This sentence immediately caused an uproar at the scene. Who is Zhao Mubei? Guangan Sword Immortal, the top of the Purple Mansion prodigy ranking, the young patriarch of the Zhao family. He is the pride of all the Zhao family members. Wu Guangai asked Zhao Mubei to apologize to the Wu family, which was undoubtedly a heavy blow to the Zhao family's reputation. Not only that, Wu Guangai even asked Zhao Mubei to swear. You know, the oaths from the monks' mouths generally refer to the oath of the Great Dao. This kind of oath cannot be made casually. If there is a little mistake, it will inevitably affect the path of the Tao. Therefore, basically not many monks are willing to make this oath. Old Ghost Wu, don't go too far. Hearing this, Zhao Muchen was also angry and asked Zhao Mubei to swear. If he dared to say this back, the Zhao family would tear him apart alive. I bullied your Zhao family today. What's wrong? I don't believe that in front of Wantong Dao today, your Zhao family can kill all of us. Zhao Muchen, Guanggan Prefecture is the Guanggan Prefecture of Kainiuan Sword Sect, not your Zhao family. Wu Guangai said angrily. You. Zhao Muchen was so angry that he couldn't speak after hearing these heart-piercing words. He said in a low voice, what do you want? Tell me. I said, let Zhao Mubei apologize and swear that this was not done by the Zhao family. Wu Guangai did not give in. Old Ghost Wu, you know this is impossible. Zhao Muchen calmed down again. How about this? Let's bet once. What bet? Wu Guangai raised his eyebrows and said, bet my life. Zhao Muchen looked at the other party. You and I are both cultivators. Since we can't reach an agreement, let's decide right and wrong based on strength. If I lose, I will give you my life, and your Wu family will never mention this matter again. Dad. Zhao Siliang, who was standing aside, was anxious when he heard this. Zhao Muchen looked at his son lovingly and then made up his mind, if I win, your Wu family will never mention this matter again in the future. Hearing this, Wu Guangai looked at him and said, are you sure you want to risk your life with me? Brother Wu, Zhao Muchen bowed. You are the head of the Wu family, and I am a member of the Zhao family. We are both family members, and there is no right or wrong. If there is a chance in the next life, we will fight again at Zenon Pass. Okay. Wu Guangai took a deep breath and nodded. If there is a chance in the next life, I will definitely fight again. In fact, Wu Guangai already believed in his heart that this was not done by the Zhao family. But the Wu family members did not believe it, and the fellows in Guanggan Prefecture did not believe it. He is the head of the Wu family, and he must unite the hearts of the family members and maintain the face of the Wu family in front of the fellows in Guanggan Prefecture. Because this is the last thing the Wu family has. Losing these, just as Wu Guangai said, the hearts of the family will be scattered. To get these, Zhao Mubei's apology and oath are naturally the best. But if not, the life of a Zhao family foundation cultivator is not bad. Seeing the two people make a life and death covenant, the people present knew that this matter was probably over. Regardless of whether this incident was done by the Zhao family, the life of a Zhao family foundation building cultivator is a Zhao family's biggest concession to their fellow monks in Guanggan Prefecture. Seeing this scene, Yang Linyuan sighed. Regardless of the outcome of this incident, the confrontation between Guanggan Immortal Alliance and the Zhao family will be irreversible. To be honest, Yang Linyuan was secretly regretting the establishment of Guanggan Immortal Alliance at this moment. Because this alliance may cause a turmoil that will affect the entire Guanggan Prefecture. It's a troubled time. Yang Linyuan sighed. In the sky, Zhao Muchen and Wu Guangai were facing each other in the air. All around, Tens of thousands of Guang'an Prefecture foundation building cultivators were watching in the air. I didn't expect that you and I can fight again in front of our fellow monks in Guang'an Prefecture today. Zhao Mucheng looked at the cultivators around him and laughed in a hoarse voice. I really can't believe it. Wu Guanggai nodded. I didn't expect that 50 years ago you were at the 7th level of foundation building, and 50 years later, you are still at the 7th level of foundation building. How come you are going backwards as you live? Zhao Mucheng also relaxed at this moment, shrugged and said, it was good enough to escape with my life back then. How could it be without any cost? Hearing this, Wu Guanggai's voice became low. In fact, I know that this matter was not done by your Zhao family, but I have no choice. Brother Zhao, I'm sorry. Hearing this, Zhao Mucheng smiled. No need, you and I are each for our own family, no need to apologize. After saying that, he glanced at his son Zhao Xiliang for the last time and said, life and death are up to fate, come on. Okay. Wu Guanggai finished speaking. A set of spiritual armor emerged. Obviously, facing Zhao Mucheng, a 7th level cultivator of foundation building. Although his cultivation level is 3 levels higher, he dare not be careless at all. On the opposite side, Zhao Mucheng also emerged in a set of spiritual armor. The streamlined spiritual armor at the figures of the two, looking like steel warriors. The next moment, the two sword lights collided with a loud bang. Chen Daoxuan looked at Zhao Xiliang beside him, who was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot, and comforted him. Don't worry, Uncle Zhao has a spiritual armor on his body. Even if he loses, his life will not be in danger. Hearing this comfort, Zhao Xiliang seemed to be a drowning man grabbing the last straw. He kept repeating, yes, yes, my father has a spiritual armor to protect him, and old Wu can't do anything to him. As he said, the whole person couldn't help but relax. In fact, Chen Daoxuan didn't tell him that Zhao Mucheng just said that, as long as he lost, he would voluntarily accept death. It is not easy for a cultivator of the same level to kill a cultivator wearing a spiritual armor and trying to escape. But if both sides don't run away and keep fighting, one side will always fail. For example, the true essence is exhausted. Just as Chen Daoxuan expected, the battle between the two in the sky became more and more intense. Various second-level sword techniques were performed, covering the area of several miles in a sword light. Time slipped away bit by bit. In a blink of an eye, an hour passed. Since both sides gave up defense and fought to the death, the consumption of true essence was extremely terrifying. That is to say, the defense of the second level upper grade spiritual armor was extremely exaggerated. The Purple Mansion cultivator had to spend some effort to break it. Among the cultivators of the same level, few people except sword cultivators could break the defense of a second level upper grade spiritual armor. Both sides could not break each other's defense. The only thing left was to consume each other's true essence. To be honest, in Chen Daoxuan's eyes, this level of battle was nothing to recommend. In his eyes, the sword skills of both sides were ridiculously poor. But in the eyes of many foundation building cultivators present, the strength of these two was almost the top level among the foundation building cultivators. Whether it was defense or attack, they almost touched the ceiling of the foundation building cultivators. Another half an hour passed. Under high intensity consumption, Zhao Mucheng's true essence was not as good as Wu Guanggai after all, and began to show a decline. Brother Zhao, you lost. After the words fell, Wu Guanggai's sword light finally broke Zhao Mucheng's spiritual armor. Because Zhao Mucheng no longer had the energy to maintain his spiritual armor, he, looking at the flying sword piercing his chest, Zhao Mucheng's face turned pale and he laughed. Old Ghost Wu, you win. Chapter 141 A Promise Worth 1,000 Pieces. What a pity. Chen Ziyan shook his head. What a pity. Chen Daoxuan looked at Chen Ziyan in confusion. Hearing this, Chen Ziyan sighed. I feel sorry for Brother Zhao. This matter should not be done by the Zhao family, but in order to calm down the matter and buy time for themselves to investigate the matter, the Zhao family had to sacrifice Brother Zhao. Chen Daoxuan frowned slightly. Can't the Zhao family report it to Carnean Sword Sect? Chen Ziyan shook his head and said nothing. At the same time, Yang Gangwen, who was standing next to Yang Linian, asked the same question as Chen Daoxuan. Grandfather, why didn't the Zhao family and the Wu family report this matter to Carnean Sword Sect? Yang Gangwen looked at Yang Linyuan in confusion. Who knew that? When Yang Linyuan heard the four words Carnian Sword Sect, his expression froze slightly. For a long time, he sighed and said, "It's not that we can't, but that we don't want to." Don't want to? That's right, Yang Linyuan nodded. Before the Shenzhou Rebellion, the Zhao family was a Jiandan family. Although the Zhao family was seriously injured after the Shenzhou Rebellion and the Battle of Zenan Pass. But with the rise of Zhao Mubei, the Zhao family has a strength and prestige comparable to its peak period. In addition, they want to become the first family in Kangzhou. The first family in Kangzhou? Yang Gangwen asked in surprise. Why do the Zhao family? Before she finished speaking, she thought of Zhao Mubei and the Zhao ancestor who was one step away from the Jiandan. Silence. At this moment, Yang Gangwen vaguely understood why the Zhao family did this. The life of a derelict foundation building clan member, calming the anger of the major families in Guanghan Prefecture, in exchange for the Zhao family's time to investigate the matter. In the eyes of the Zhao family, it is worth it. Otherwise, once this matter is exposed to the Carnian Sword Sect, the Zhao family will not only lose face in front of the Guanghan Prefecture, but also leave an image of incompetence to the entire Kangzhou community. By then, even if the Zhao family produces another Jiandan cultivator, in the eyes of outsiders, they are no different from the current Yi family. How can a family that can't even settle the small matters within Guanghan Prefecture become the #1 family in Kangzhou? The Zhao family now needs time to redeem their lost face. Chen Zion understood this, and so did Yang Linyuan. Even Zhao Mucheng had been prepared for this before coming here. Then why didn't the Wu family report it to Carnian Sword Sect? Yang Gangwen looked at her grandfather again. Yang Linyuan said dimly, compared to the Zhao family, the more than 100 foundation building cultivators lost by the Wu family are completely lost. Compared to revenge, what they need more is to consider the present and the future. Consider the present and the future? Yang Gangwen was even more confused when she heard this. Before the Shenzhou Rebellion, the Wu family was a large family with nearly 10 purple mansion cultivators, just like my Yang family. Over the years, the Shenzhou Rebellion and the Battle of Zenan Pass have caused the Wu family to decline step by step. They have lost not only their strength, but also the shaky morale of the family. In particular, the loss of more than 100 foundation building cultivators in the Wu family this time was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Rather than investigating the truth of the matter, Wu Guanggai must first gather the people's hearts. Yang Linyuan's eyes were deep. Otherwise, if the people's hearts are scattered, the family will be finished. Gather the hearts of the family members. Yang Gangwen had a lot of feelings about this. Because the Yang family, like the Wu family, had declined step by step. As the family's strength declined, the people's hearts also gradually dissipated. In this situation, it was not until Yang Linyuan broke through the Purple Mansion and established the Guanghan Immortal Alliance that the Yang family regained their confidence. Sometimes, confidence is not worth mentioning, but sometimes, confidence is too important. Yang Linyuan didn't know that Yang Gangwen had thought of so much at once, and continued. As for the future, Wu Guanggai knew that what he wanted was just to unite the hearts of the clan members, not to completely offend the Zhao family. After all, the Wu family still has tens of thousands of cultivators, and they will continue the family in Guanghan Prefecture in the future. If they report to Carnian Sword Sect regardless, it would be a slap in the face of the Zhao family in front of the fellows in Guanghan Prefecture and even the entire Kangzhou. No matter how the matter ends, the Zhao and Wu families will be in a relationship of life and death in the future. Does the Wu family dare to fight the Zhao family to death? Hearing this, Yang Gangwen suddenly understood. For a cultivation force, strength is certainly the foundation, but reputation and face are also very important. It is even the thing second only to strength. The consequences of losing reputation. Just look at the end of the Yi family in Kangzhou. Not to mention in Wangxinghe, even in Kangzhou, and even in Guanghan Prefecture. How many families are really selling the Yi family's accounts? The Yi family cultivators are ridiculed and mocked when they walk outside. Although the Kangzhou Yi family is known as the first family in Kangzhou, it is only barely so in terms of strength. In terms of reputation, no family will recognize them. Now both the Zhao and Wu families want this face, and Zhao Mucheng, who failed in his duty, is the victim to be sacrificed. While everyone was talking, new changes occurred on the field. At the moment, when Zhao Muchen was about to be killed, Zhao Muchen's son Zhao Xiliang rushed up regardless of anything. "Old thief of the Wu family, you dare to touch my father. Lianja, don't." Zhao Muchen saw Zhao Xiliang's actions, his face flushed, and he said in shock and anger. Zhao Xiliang didn't care about his seriously injured father's dissuasion. His eyes turned red, and he rushed towards Wu Guangai with a flash of light. After all, not everyone can fight across levels like Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei. Zhao Xiliang is just a cultivator who has just established his foundation. How can he be the opponent of Wu Guangai, a cultivator who has completed his foundation? Get out. A sword light flashed. Wu Guangai's flying sword appeared in front of Zhao Xiliang. Alas. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxuan sighed. Originally, this matter was the choice of the Zhao family and Zhao Muchen, and Chen Daoxuan had no right or intention to ask. But at this moment, Zhao Xiliang was about to fall in front of him. Chen Daoxuan had to ask. The next moment, a starlight came first and directly cut Wu Guangai's flying sword away. Then, Chen Daoxuan escaped and stood in front of Zhao Xiliang. He bowed and said, "Fellow Daoist Wu is so cruel to kill him. Who are you? You dare to interfere in the affairs of my Wu family." Wu Guangai's face suddenly darkened. At this moment, he had already set off a storm in his heart. If he sensed that starlight correctly, sword cultivator. It's a sword cultivator. The people present were not ignorant. Someone immediately recognized Chen Daoxuan's method. Boom. This sentence immediately caused an uproar on the scene. Sword cultivator. Guanghan Prefecture actually had a second sword cultivator besides Zhao Mubei. Chen family of Shuanghu Island. Chen Daoxuan. Chen Daoxuan bowed and said calmly, "I have no intention of interfering in the affairs of the Wu family, but you can't touch him." Chen Daoxuan pointed at Zhao Xiliang. For some reason, after hearing that Chen Daoxuan did not intend to interfere in the affairs of his Wu family, Wu Guangai actually breathed a sigh of relief. After all, the reputation of the sword cultivator was too great in Wangxinghe and even in Xianyantao. If Chen Daoxuan insisted on interfering today, the Wu family would really be in trouble. Chapter 142 Why is it so? Sword cultivator. Hearing the exclamation from the Foundation cultivator present, Yang Gangwen felt as if her head had been hit hard. She was dizzy and couldn't recover for a long time. What she had been pursuing year after year was actually accomplished by a cultivator from a small family that she had never really valued. At this moment, an unprecedented sense of frustration overwhelmed her. She finally understood what her grandfather had always told her, that big families all came from small families step by step. There are not many big families that are born big families. She looked at Chen Daoxuan, who was the focus of everyone's attention, and seemed to see the rise of a big family from that shining figure. Sword cultivator. If Chen Daoxuan does not fall in the future, the Chen family will definitely rise and be unstoppable. Yang Gangwen, who knows the horror of sword cultivators, knows this very well. Brother Zhao, let's go. Chen Daoxuan glanced at Zhao Xiliang, whose emotions were gradually getting out of control, and a thunderous voice exploded in his ears. Startled by the explosion, Zhao Xiliang regained consciousness a little, and he looked at Chen Daoxuan, his eyes full of pleading. "Brother Chen, help me once please, save my father." Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan was silent. After a long time, he sighed. "Brother Zhao, haven't you seen it yet? It's not that I don't save Uncle Zhao, but this decision is not only the decision of your Zhao family, but also your father's own choice." Chen Daoxuan didn't know what the Zhao family thought, but in his opinion, although Zhao Muchen was wrong, he was not guilty of death. The Zhao family was too harsh on the clan members. At least, the Chen family under Chen Daoxuan's control could not make such a cruel decision. From the perspective of interests, the Zhao family undoubtedly paid the smallest price for this move and saved the reputation of the Zhao family. Once the Zhao family thoroughly investigates the matter, not only can it give justice to the Zhao family, but it can also establish the absolute prestige of the Zhao family in front of millions of cultivators in Guanghan Prefecture. It even lays the foundation for the Zhao family to become the first family in Kangzhou in the future. What the Zhao family lost was just a trivial late-stage foundation building cultivator whose lifespan was not long. Even other members of the Zhao family would not feel that the family was cold and indifferent. After all, the Zhao family is now being pointed out by the husbands and suffering from injustice, all because of Zhao Mucheng's dereliction of duty. If not for this, with the strength of the Zhao family, it would never have fallen into such a dilemma. No, I don't believe it. Zhao Xiliang kept shaking his head. The family can't give up my father. My Zhao family has stood in Guanghan Prefecture for more than 1,000 years. What storms have we not experienced? In the chaos of the gods, so many Chindan cultivators and Kangs had died in the battle, and so many families were destroyed, but my Zhao family survived. This time, because of the death of more than 100 foundation building cultivators, my Zhao family will give up the clansmen. I don't believe it. I don't believe anything. Zhao Xiliang said, his eyes red, and his expression, as if he wanted to eat people. Seeing him like this, Chen Daoxuan didn't know how to comfort him. He could only remain silent. Father, what are you doing? Zhao Xiliang turned his head with difficulty, only to see Zhao Mucheng, who was covered in blood, with his right palm against Zhao Xiliang's back. On the palm, a series of magic patterns flowed. Chen Daoxuan recognized it at a glance. It was the technique of sealing the Danshan Qi Si. Zhao Mucheng's left chest spiritual armor was torn open, and through the gap, he could even faintly see his beating heart. This kind of injury would have killed an ordinary person long ago. But Zhao Mucheng, as a late-stage foundation building cultivator, still forced himself to muster up the little remaining true energy, and under the sneak attack, temporarily imprisoned Zhao Xiliang's Danshan. Zhao Mucheng ignored his son's surprised eyes, turned his head to look at Chen Daoxuan, and trembled as he bowed to him and said, "My dear nephew, uncle thanks you. Uncle Zhao, please stand up." Chen Daoxuan rolled up his true energy, and brought Zhao Xiliang, whose Danshan was imprisoned, and temporarily lost control of his true energy, to his flying sword, while holding Zhao Mucheng's prostrating body with his hands. Zhao Mucheng then looked at his own flesh and blood, with a touch of doting in his eyes, and said, "Xiliang, from now on, when your father is no longer in the world, you must ask your brother Chen for advice on everything. You must not fool around with those bad friends all day long like before, remember?" Zhao Xiliang was already crying and shaking his head with red eyes. "Father, no, don't." Tears kept rolling down Zhao Xiliang's cheeks, and he shouted at the top of his lungs, "We are the Zhao family, and the Wu family dare not do anything to us. Father, you run away. You run away." Hearing this, Zhao Mucheng smiled bitterly. "Back then, when I was in Zenan Pass, I ran away. Since then, I swear that in this life, I, Zhao Mucheng, will never run away again." After that, Zhao Mucheng stopped looking at his son, turned his head to look at Wu Guanggai, and said loudly, "Old Wu, I lost. According to the agreement, my life is yours." Who knows that after hearing this, Wu Guanggai glanced at Chen Daoxuan, with a deep fear in his eyes. "Ahem. Don't worry, this is my own choice, and has nothing to do with anyone else." Seeing Wu Guanggai's eyes, Zhao Mucheng immediately knew what the other party was thinking, and he coughed up blood while laughing wantonly. "Okay." Wu Guanggai nodded heavily. "After today, my Wu family will no longer mention your Zhao family's killing of my Wu family members, but your Zhao family must give us an explanation, as soon as possible." "Don't worry." Zhao Mucheng nodded. "Even if you don't say this, my Zhao family will give you Wu family and millions of fellow Taoists in Guanghan Prefecture an explanation. My Zhao family has established Guanghan Prefecture Xiansheng for thousands of years. Except for the Shenzhou rebellion that year, there has not been a second such serious killing incident. For this matter, my Zhao family will definitely give everyone a satisfactory explanation." Zhao Mucheng said this in a decisive manner. After speaking, he closed his eyes, ready to reverse his true essence, and cut off his heart meridian. But the next second, he found that his true essence was imprisoned. No, to be precise, his whole body was imprisoned. Who? Zhao Mucheng opened his eyes in horror. Although his true essence was almost exhausted at this moment, he was a late foundation cultivator after all. It was difficult for a purple mansion cultivator to achieve this level. Could it be a golden core cultivator? Zhao Mucheng was shocked by his thoughts. At this time, a familiar voice came into everyone's ears. Brother, why do you have to do this? Above Lingzhou City, dozens of miles away from Lingshan, a white figure walked towards everyone in the air step by step. The white figure walked very slowly, but every step seemed to step on everyone's heart. Under his feet, the air bloomed with ripples, like the legendary lotus step by step. Guangan sword immortal Zhao Mubei. Seeing the person coming, Yang Linyuan took a breath. Purple Mansion level 3, how can his cultivation level increase so fast? Yang Linyuan murmured. But at this moment, no one was paying attention to his words anymore. Everyone's attention was focused on the white figure in front of them who was walking towards them step by step. Si estas escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas. Significa que descargaran y subirán sin esfuerzo te invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas ali encontrarás la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos géneros. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas increíbles. Chapter 143 The Oath of the Great Dao. In the hinterland of Lingbei Island, a 4th order spiritual vein is completely covered by a 5th order mountain protection formation. On the spiritual vein, there are many spiritual mountains. On each spiritual mountain, there is a palace and fairy house. It is said that this 5th order mountain protection formation was set up by Yuan Ying's engine of Kainyuan sword sect after the Zhao family made great contributions to Kainyuan sword sect 1,000 years ago. This place is different from the Guanghan Prefecture fairy city on the coast. This is the Zhao family's land. Except for the Zhao family cultivators, outsiders are prohibited from entering without invitation. Among the mountains, in the most majestic and towering spiritual mountain fairy palace, a cultivator with silver hair, but a face like a young man stood on the high platform of the palace, overlooking the faint spiritual mountains under his feet. Suddenly, he sighed and said, "Is Mubei gone?" Hearing this, an old man who pushed the door and paused slightly, his face looked a little ugly, and he bowed his head to admit his mistake. Clan leader, I was incompetent, and failed to stop him. The sword cultivator of the 3rd level of the Purple Mansion insisted on leaving. Not to mention you, even if I personally took action, I couldn't stop him. The silver-haired young man shook his head. 3rd elder, this is not your fault. Mubei has his own persistence and his own way. It is not necessarily clear who is right and who is wrong in this matter. But, is it worth it for a late-stage foundation building cultivator who made a big mistake? The 3rd elder was very puzzled. Hearing this, the ancestor of the Zhao family smiled. In your eyes, Mu Cheng is the one who made a big mistake, but in Mubei's eyes, he is a member of my Zhao clan, that's all. Mubei will not give up any member of the Zhao clan, even if giving up him is the best choice. Above Lingzhou City, in front of the floating spiritual mountain, Zhao Mubei's feet are covered with lotus, and he walks in the air. As he walked towards the crowd step by step, the cultivators present felt that the air around them became stagnant. You know, there are more than 10,000 cultivators who came to participate in the Lingzhou City celebration today. So many cultivators were suppressed by Zhao Mubei's momentum. It can be seen that the name of the sword immortal is not false. Chen Daoxuan looked at Zhao Mubei who was walking towards him step by step, and felt as if his whole body was stuck in a quagmire. All along, he felt that he had built the foundation of the strongest sword cultivator. Even if he was not Zhao Mubei's opponent, he could at least look up to him. But obviously, he overestimated himself, or underestimated Zhao Mubei. Only when he stood in front of Zhao Mubei in person, did Chen Daoxuan feel how much pressure he was under. Compared with Zhao Mubei, the chief of the Bishu 8 clan he had fought with before was no different from a child. In the Danshan Key Sea, the flickering starlight suspended above the Key Sea gradually stabilized under the stimulation of Zhao Mubei's momentum. As the starlight became brighter and brighter, the pressure on Chen Daoxuan's body became less and less. With a slight movement, he found that he could move. Obviously, Zhao Mubei in the distance also noticed this scene, and a bright light burst out of his eyes. It was as if he had encountered some great joy. Zhao Mubei's mind moved, and he gradually pulled away the momentum of his whole body from everyone, and then pressed towards Chen Daoxuan little by little. This time, Chen Daoxuan suddenly felt that the burden he had just unloaded was on his shoulders again, and this time, the pressure he withstood was even greater. He knew that Zhao Mubei intended to measure his quality. Although Chen Daoxuan had not practiced for a long time as a sword cultivator, he was like the sword cultivators in the world and would rather break than bend. At this moment, Zhao Mubei's pressure stimulated him. In the Danshan Qi Si, the sword energy was running wildly. Coupled with the increase in the tangible sword intention above the Qi Si, no matter how Zhao Mubei exerted pressure, the 3 feet in front of Chen Daoxuan were firmly controlled by him and were not affected by Zhao Mubei at all. You succeeded? Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan felt the pressure around him recede like a tide. He looked at Zhao Mubei, nodded and said, "Lucky success. Good, good." Zhao Mubei laughed wantonly. "Today will be the day of truth." After saying this, Zhao Mubei looked at Zhao Mucheng, and the smile on his face faded. Looking at Zhao Mucheng's bloody appearance, Zhao Mubei shook his head and said, "Brother, why do you have to do this?" Hearing this, Zhao Mucheng smiled bitterly, "Young patriarch, this must be done. Otherwise, my Zhao family will not be able to reassure the Wu family members, and if not, we will not be able to gain the trust of millions of fellow practitioners in Guanghan Prefecture. Reassure the Wu family. Gain the trust of fellow practitioners in Guanghan Prefecture." Zhao Mubei raised his eyebrows. "What's so difficult about this?" After saying this, Zhao Mubei turned his head and looked at Wu Guanggai, the head of the Wu family opposite him. When Wu Guanggai saw Zhao Mubei's eyes looking at him, he felt a terrifying pressure on him, making it extremely difficult for him to open his mouth. Beside him, the flying sword that had been chopped off by Chen Daoxuan was even more frightened by Zhao Mubei's sword intent, and it wailed. For a long time, Wu Guanggai felt his whole body lighten. He knew that Zhao Mubei had withdrawn his momentum. Fellow Daoist Wu, if your Wu family has any request, just say it in front of so many fellow Daoists from Guanghan Prefecture. Zhao Mubei said calmly. Okay. Wu Guanggai nodded and mustered up the courage to say, "I said before that, as long as you Zhao Mubei apologize to my Wu family on behalf of the Zhao family and swear that this matter was not done by your Zhao family, I will believe you. Do you dare?" "Who knows?" Zhao Mubei smiled when he heard this, turned his head and looked at Zhao Mucheng and said, "Just for this matter, my clan brother will risk his life to protect me? Could it be that in my clan brother's eyes, my Zhao Mubei's face is more precious than my clan brother's life?" Hearing this, Zhao Mucheng was silent. Without waiting for Zhao Mucheng to answer, Zhao Mubei looked around at his fellow Taoists from Guanghan Prefecture and said loudly, "My Zhao family failed to protect the safety of the Wu family's route to Guanghan Prefecture Immortal City. This is a dereliction of duty. I, Zhao Mubei, apologize to the 136 members of your Wu family who died on behalf of the Zhao family." After saying this, Zhao Mubei bowed deeply and stood up after 3 breaths. Seeing this, everyone in their hearts had awe for Zhao Mubei and the Zhao family. As for the oath you mentioned, Zhao Mubei paused slightly. Everyone present was worried. As long as Zhao Mubei dared to swear in public, it was basically 100% certain that this was definitely not done by the Zhao family, because the Zhao family would not bet on Zhao Mubei's path in order to strike at the Guanghan Immortal Alliance. For the Zhao family, this would undoubtedly ruin the family's future and hope, and it would be an extremely stupid act. I, Zhao Mubei, swear here that, if the 136 foundation building cultivators of your Wu family were killed by my Zhao family, I will never make any progress in swordsmanship in my life. This oath, heaven and earth can bear witness to. Boom boom boom. As this oath was made, a muffled thunder sounded faintly in the sky. Everyone felt something in their hearts. There was an inexplicable aura flowing around Zhao Mubei. This was the effect of making a great oath. Chen Daoxuan was very familiar with this effect, because Luo Zhuan, the leader of the mermaid tribe, had made such an oath in front of him. When everyone saw this scene, they all put aside their doubts about the Zhao family. This matter was definitely not done by the Zhao family. Fellow Daoist Wu, what do you think? Wu Guanggai was stunned and speechless when he heard this. For a long while, he then bowed his hands and said, "Senior Zhao's behavior makes me admire you. My Wu family has nothing to say. Don't worry, fellow Taoist Wu, my Zhao family will give you, the Wu family, and our fellow Taoists in Guanghan Prefecture a satisfactory answer." Hearing this, Wu Guangai's eyes turned red. He bowed and choked up, saying, in this case, please. Chapter 144. Shocking Change. Above Lingshan Mountain, Yang Linyuan looked at Zhao Mubei, who was surrounded by many cultivators like a moon surrounded by stars, and felt a lot of emotions in his heart. Seeing Zhao Mubei alone, he easily controlled the whole situation in the territory of Guanggan and Meng with just a few words. Thinking of this, Yang Linyuan's eyes revealed a bitterness. Just relying on Zhao Mubei, he suppressed the momentum of everyone in Guanggan and Meng. Guanggan and Meng still wanted to compete with the Zhao family. Isn't it ridiculous? Shaking his head, Yang Linyuan seemed to have discovered something, turned his head to look at Yang Gangwen beside him, and asked, where is fellow Daoist Zhao? The fellow Daoist Zhao he mentioned was Zhao Yuanhun, the head of the Zhao family, one of the three pillar families of Guanggan and Meng. I don't know. Yang Gangwen was also a little surprised. Just now, she had been focusing on Chen Daoxuan, Zhao Mubei and others, and Yang Gangwen did not pay attention to the whereabouts of the head of the Zhao family. On the field, Zhao Mubei took out a second level elixir for healing injuries, and fed it into Zhao Mucheng's mouth. Then he pointed at Zhao Xiliang's danshan next to Chen Daoxuan, releasing his danshan confinement. He regained control of his own true essence. Zhao Xiliang hurriedly flew to Zhao Mucheng and said excitedly, Dad, are you okay? After taking the elixir, Zhao Mucheng's face looked much better. He shook his head at Zhao Xiliang and said, Dad is fine. Then, he bowed to Zhao Mubei again and said, young patriarch, Mucheng made such a big mistake, and also affected the oath of the young patriarch for me. Mucheng feels guilty. Hearing this, Zhao Mubei shook his head and said, although my clan brother has failed to fulfill his duty, he is not guilty of death. What's more, fortunately, my clan brother did not find that the Wu family cultivator was attacked that day, otherwise, you and the clan members on the warship would probably be in danger. No matter what, thank you, young patriarch. From now on, don't forget your identity as a member of the Zhao family, which is the best reward for me. Zhao Mubei raised his hand and interrupted Zhao Mucheng. Yeah. Zhao Mucheng was so moved that he choked up. On the side, Zhao Xiliang knelt down in front of Zhao Mubei and kowtowed, saying, thank you, young clan leader, for saving my father's life. Get up. Looking at the C-Generation clan member in front of him, Zhao Mubei waved his hand slightly, and the other party stood up involuntarily. After chatting with the Zhao family members, Zhao Mubei looked at Chen Daoxuan on the side and said, Brother Chen, congratulations. From now on, my Guanggan prefecture will have another sword cultivator. Zhao Mubei had one more thing to say, and it was a sword cultivator who laid the foundation for the strongest sword cultivator. However, Zhao Mubei also knew the principle of a tree standing out in the forest, and he intended to keep Chen Daoxuan secret, and did not explain his background in public. Anyway, everyone was not a sword cultivator. Everyone's understanding of sword cultivators only stopped at the fact that sword cultivators had superior combat power, not only invincible at the same level, but also able to fight across levels. As for how to fight across levels, what is the difference between sword cultivators and sword cultivators? The cultivators were not very clear. In fact, if Chen Daoxuan had not obtained Zhao Mubei's sword jade slip, he would not have known that there was a way to become the strongest sword cultivator among sword cultivators. He also did not know that there were levels of sword intent. This shows that there is a difference between inheritance and no inheritance. If Chen Daoxuan was born in Carnean Sword Sect, his achievements would definitely be much higher than they are now. Of course, being in Carnean Sword Sect, there are many more constraints in all aspects than now. It's really a fluke. Chen Daoxuan said modestly. Zhao Mubei believed this. Although he did not embark on the path of the strongest sword cultivator, he could imagine how violent the true ki would be when it was transformed into true essence after being tempered once. The reason why he did not embark on this path at the beginning was that on the one hand, his talent was slightly inferior, and his sword talent was not enough for him to comprehend the sword intent in the ki refining stage. On the other hand, Zhao Mubei did not have the confidence to successfully build his foundation, because he knew that this kind of a Vildoer who became a sword cultivator in the ki refining stage could be said to be unacceptable to heaven to a certain extent. To successfully build a foundation, the right time, right place, and right people are indispensable. Even so, it is a life or death struggle. Therefore, this kind of sword cultivator who comprehends the sword intent in the key refining stage is called a legendary sword cultivator. It is because it is rare in the world. While the few people were talking, an old man in a light blue Taoist robe flew to the sky, bowed to the foundation building cultivators around him, and said loudly, "Wait a minute." Everyone was attracted by his voice and looked over. This old man is a 9th level foundation building cultivator. He has grey hair and the vicissitudes of life. It seems that he is approaching the end of his life. This person is the head of the Zhao family that Yang Linyuan was looking for before. Zhao Yuanhuan. Then, Zhao Yuanhuan flew in front of Zhao Mubei, bowed to Zhao Mubei, and was reluctant to get up for a long time. Zhao Mubei recognized him, and quickly raised his hand and said, "Dao Ao Zhao, why is this?" Hearing this, Zhao Yuanhuan raised his head. Who knows, when Chen Daoxuan saw the expression on his face, he felt a shock in his heart. What a face! Zhao Yuanhuan looked as if he had been tortured by others, with a desperate and miserable expression on his face. His eye sockets were even cracked, and blood was dripping. "Senior Zhao," Zhao Yuanhuan screamed, "my Zhao family is finished. My Zhao family. It's finished." The last sentence was simply earth-shattering. The Guanghan prefecture colleagues present were in an uproar. What's going on? The Zhao family is the largest family in Guanghan prefecture after the Zhao and Yang families. The number of family members and cultivators is not less than that of the Wu family. Moreover, they are good at alchemy, and have always been very popular in Guanghan prefecture. Yes, what kind of vicious criminals can do such a thing? First it was the Wu family, then the Zhao family. Hiss, why do I feel that things are getting more and more complicated? Zhao Mubei heard the Zhao family's head cry, grabbed Zhao Yuanhuan's arm, and said anxiously, "Fellow Daoist Zhao, don't worry, and explain it clearly." Zhao Yuanhuan heard the words, tears of blood in his eyes, and said painfully, "My family just sent me a message that my Zhao family's Lotus Island was attacked by a group of evil spirits." What kind of evil spirits? I don't know. Zhao Yuanhuan shook his head before he finished speaking. The other end of the communication was cut off. This. Zhao Mubei and others looked at each other. Can we still get in touch? Zhao Yuanhuan shook his head and said, "I have been contacting, but no one responded. Senior Zhao, please rescue our Zhao family. After this battle, our Zhao family is willing to follow the Zhao family's lead. Let's not talk about this first, let's go." Zhao Mubei grabbed Zhao Yuanhuan's body and was about to leave. Chen Daoxuan hurriedly said, "Brother Zhao, I'm willing to go too." Chen Daoxuan also felt that something was wrong at this moment. First the Wu family was attacked, and then the Zhao family. He must go to find out the situation, otherwise such a disaster will befall the Chen family. How can the Chen family resist? Okay. Zhao Mubei glanced at Chen Daoxuan. Without thinking too much, the sword light rolled up, taking him and Zhao Yuanhuan, soaring into the sky, and flew towards the direction of Lotus Island. Chapter 145 Investigation. The Lotus Islands are a group of islands shaped like lotuses, with 8 islands guarding a large island in the middle. Looking down from the sky, it looks like a blooming lotus. This is the land of the Zhao family. The Zhao family, like the Yang family and the Wu family, was once a purple family in Guanghan prefecture, but now it has declined and become a foundation building family. Even so, the foundation of the Zhao family is not comparable to that of an ordinary foundation building family. The Lotus Islands are composed of 9 islands, 1 large and 8 small. Among them, 8 smaller islands are inhabited by mortals of the Zhao family, and the large island at the core is the residence of the Zhao family's cultivators. But at this moment, on the Lotus Island, the Yinsha aura is pervasive, and there is no appearance of a blessed land for immortals. You know, the original main island of the Lotus Islands has a 3rd level spiritual vein. But at this moment, this 3rd level spiritual vein has become the source of Yinsha aura. The main island of the Lotus Islands. In the Zhao family's immortal mansion. At this moment, the entire immortal mansion is surrounded by Yinsha aura, and there are ghosts inside. let alone mortals. Even if they were cultivators in the foundation building stage, they would not be able to stay here for long before being attacked by the evil spirit. Brother, why did you let that kid from the Zhao family send the message out? The person who spoke had a broad face and a green face. When he opened his mouth, his cold fangs were faintly visible. If you look closely, there are even traces of dark red flesh and blood left between his lips and teeth. Looking at his facial contours, who else could it be but the Sun brothers who went to the Shenzhou Immortal Mansion to search for treasures? Hearing his brother's words, the tall and thin corpse demon with a pale face raised his head and glanced at his brother. Its eyes were golden, faintly revealing a hint of cruelty and coldness. This person was the white-faced foundation building cultivator, Sun Fu. The master's order is for the two of us to take over Guang'an Prefecture as soon as possible and use it as a base to attack Kangzhou Immortal City. As far as I know, there are nearly 10 Purple Mansion cultivators in the Zhao family alone in Guang'an Prefecture, and Zhao Mubei of the Zhao family is a sword cultivator with outstanding combat power. He paused. If we want to take over Guang'an Prefecture as soon as possible, we must find a way to weaken the Zhao family's strength. But, are you so sure that the Zhao family will send Purple Mansion cultivators to investigate? I'm sure, and the Zhao family will definitely send more than one Purple Mansion cultivator. Sun Fu rubbed his black nails. His nails were as black as ink and as sharp as a flying sword. When rubbed gently, a string of sparks actually exploded. More than 100 foundation building cultivators of the Wu family were killed by us and refined into corpse servants. To be able to do this, at least several Purple Mansion cultivators must work together. Therefore, the Zhao family will definitely send Purple Mansion cultivators to check this time, and more than one. Sun Fu did not guess that the Zhao family did send Purple Mansion cultivators. It's just that it was not several, but only Zhao Mubei. In the sky, Zhao Mubei's escape light streaked across the sky, extremely fast. Chen Daoxuan felt that Zhao Mubei's escape speed was even several times faster than his. Brother Zhao, don't you think this matter is a bit strange? First it was the Wu family, then the Zhao family. Why do I feel that the other party seems to be deliberately leading us by the nose? Hearing this, Zhao Mubei was slightly startled. Indeed, the development of things to this point is indeed a bit abnormal. The attack on the Wu family fleet was to show their strength to the Zhao family. The other party had at least one Purple Mansion cultivator. Then, the Zhao family was killed. In this way, the Zhao family wanted to investigate clearly, and they had to send more than 3 Purple Mansion cultivators to ensure that there was no risk. From this point of view, the Zhao family's Lotus Island looked a bit like a trap set by the other party. Zhao Mubei understood what Chen Daoxuan meant, but the Wu family's fleet had an accident on the route to Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City. Now the enemy has shown traces in the Zhao family's territory again. Zhao Mubei had to investigate it for the promise he made to his fellow monks in Guang'an Prefecture. Besides, Zhao Mubei was skilled and courageous. He was sure that, as long as he was not a late giant and cultivator, he would be able to escape if he used his trump card. And if the other party had the strength of a late giant and cultivator, why would he be so sneaky? Wouldn't it be enough to just attack Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City directly? Hearing Chen Daoxuan's words, Zhao Mubei said solemnly, no matter what, let's go to Lotus Island first. Chen Daoxuan nodded. This was the only way to deal with it now. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan felt inexplicably irritated. Originally, the Guang'an Immortal Alliance and the Zhao family fought, but at most they fought without breaking each other. There was no possibility of a direct armed conflict between the two sides. But now, evil spirits appeared inexplicably, and armed conflict was inevitable. In fact, there were evil cultivators in both the Huangxing Sea and the Xianan continent. Although the overall strength of these evil cultivators is not strong, they are like rats in the gutter, and they will suddenly attack you, which is really annoying. Of course, according to Zhao Yuanhuan's narration, what happened on Lotus Island may not be as simple as evil cultivation. Zhao Mubei's escape light is extremely fast. In less than an hour, he has crossed a distance of tens of thousands of miles. Ahead, Lotus Island is already faintly visible. This is the first time Chen Daoxuan has come to Lotus Island, because the Chen family's Shuanghu Island is located roughly on the left side of Guang'an Prefecture, while Lotus Island is on the right side of Guang'an Prefecture. If you want to rush from Shuanghu Island to Lotus Island, it will take at least several months to sail at the speed of the Chen family's cargo ship. Moreover, the Chen family and the Zhao family are not familiar with each other, and the two families do not have much interest exchanges, so there is no need to come here at all. Here we are. Seeing his family's land, the white-haired Zhao Yuanhuan was anxious. He couldn't wait to go to Lotus Island to find out. But fortunately, he still had a trace of reason. He knew that this trip must rely on Zhao Mubei's power. Evil spirit. A purple light flashed in Zhao Mubei's eyes. Obviously, this is a spiritual pupil secret technique. Chen Daoxuan couldn't see any evil spirit, but he felt uncomfortable looking at the main island of Lotus Island in front of him. Brother Zhao, what is evil spirit? Zhao Mubei dropped his escape light on a small island on the periphery and explained, you should know that spiritual energy is transformed from earth energy, right? Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan nodded. Spiritual veins are built according to the terrain, and no spiritual vein can be built in the air. Even the power source Lingshu pool in the Zhao family's Lingsu warship was only refined using a unique refining method. Anyway, it is definitely different from the spiritual vein. Evil spirit is transformed from spiritual energy. At this point, Zhao Mubei's face suddenly became serious. If it was an ordinary evil spirit, Zhao Mubei would kill it himself. But an evil spirit that can transform a spiritual vein into a yin vein is not something Zhao Mubei can act rashly. First of all, the strength of evil spirits is increased in the yin veins, and in a place full of yin evil spirits, because the body of a cultivator has to resist the invasion of yin evil spirits all the time, it is good to be able to exert 70% or 80% of his strength. With the back and forth, the strength gap is huge. Perhaps the opponent can use a purple mansion early stage as a purple mansion middle stage. More importantly, since the opponent has transformed the Zhao family's third level spiritual veins into yin veins, it proves that the Zhao family cultivators are in danger. After Zhao Mubei's explanation, Chen Daoxuan immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. The main island not far away in front of him, hiding far more than one evil spirit, but a large group of evil spirits. I just don't know the specific strength of this group of evil spirits. Friend Zhao, brother Chen, you wait here for a while, and I will go to the main island to investigate. Zhao Mubei bowed to the two. Zhao Yuanhuan knew that his strength was limited, and even if he went, he would drag Zhao Mubei down. But he looked at Chen Daoxuan, because in the eyes of the Zhao family leader, Chen Daoxuan is also a sword cultivator. Although his strength is not as good as Zhao Mubei, he is definitely much stronger than him, a foundation building cultivator who is about to die. Seeing the Zhao family leader's eyes, Chen Daoxuan pondered for a moment and said, Brother Zhao, how about you and I join forces to find out what's going on? Hearing this, Zhao Mubei suddenly felt that Chen Daoxuan was quite courageous, but then thought of his strength and nodded in agreement. With the sword cultivation foundation forged by Chen Daoxuan, his strength is definitely comparable to that of ordinary purple mansion early stage cultivators. If Chen Daoxuan goes, it will also be a help to him. Chapter 146, Corpse Refining Ground. Two beams of light quietly descended on the main island of Lotus Island. They were Zhao Mubei and Chen Daoxuan. As soon as he entered the island, Chen Daoxuan discovered that there was a completely different atmosphere here from the 8 small islands outside. Not long after he landed, this aura invaded Chen Daoxuan's body. Seeing this, Zhao Mubei threw a green pill and said, this is a sha-breaking pill, which can resist the evil spirit within 3 hours, and will not affect your strength. After saying that, he thought about it, and threw another one to Chen Daoxuan as a backup. Chen Daoxuan swallowed the sha-breaking pill in one gulp. Immediately, the evil spirit no longer invaded his body, as if there was a protective layer that faintly separated him from the evil spirit. Zhao Mubei also took a sha-breaking pill and said, Brother Chen, be careful. Don't worry, Brother Zhao. Chen Daoxuan nodded. Although he didn't know how many evil spirits there were on this island, nor how strong they were, Chen Daoxuan was still very confident in himself, especially in Zhao Mubei's strength. With Zhao Mubei, even if he encountered a giant and level evil spirit, he could take him away safely. After taking the sha-breaking pill, the two did not dare to waste time and ran straight towards the Zhao family's spiritual vein. Because they were afraid of alerting the enemy, Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei did not choose to fly in the air, but ran on the ground like mortal warriors. It's just that the speed of a cultivator running is much faster than that of a mortal warrior. In the eyes of a mortal warrior, even the shadows of the two could not be seen clearly. Because both of them practiced the art of concealing their breath, the auras of Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei were so faint that they were almost inaudible. On the other side, in the Zhao family's land, Sun Fu held a round mirror-shaped magic weapon in his hand, and the round mirror showed the figures of Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei running. Zhao Mubei. Sun Fu saw Zhao Mubei's figure, and his face was overjoyed. Originally, it thought that, if it could eliminate a few ordinary Purple Mansion cultivators of the Zhao family, it would be a big victory. Unexpectedly, it caught a big fish. However, although he was happy, Sun Fu did not dare to be careless. After all, Zhao Mubei was a sword cultivator, and his real combat power was far beyond that of ordinary Purple Mansion cultivators. In fact, with Zhao Mubei's current Purple Mansion 3rd level cultivation, several Purple Mansion late stage cultivators might not be his opponents. After all, when Zhao Mubei defeated Luo Zhuan 5 or 6 years ago, he was only at the 1st level of Purple Mansion. Thinking of this, Sun Fu said to his brother beside him, "Go and see if the 3 corpse servants of the early stage of the Purple Mansion have been refined." "Brother, don't worry, they have been refined a long time ago." The broad-faced man's face was blue and purple, and his fangs were exposed. He said, "With the strength of the 2 of us who have perfected the Purple Mansion, plus the 3 corpse servants of the early stage of the Purple Mansion, we will definitely be able to stop Zhao Mubei. We still can't be careless." Sun Fu shook his head. Even if Zhao Mubei is defeated, with the Zhao family's background, it is impossible not to give him a trump card to save his life. If he escapes at that time, things will be troublesome. Hearing this, the broad-faced zombie agreed and said seriously, "I have arranged the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation, and with the yin evil key of the 3rd level yin vein, Zhao Mubei will definitely not escape." Sun Fu was relieved when he heard about the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation. With the combat power of the 2 of them who have perfected the Purple Mansion, plus the combat power of the 3 who are in the early stage of the Purple Mansion, a total of 5 Purple Mansions, and the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation, they can't take down Zhao Mubei. He is too terrifying. I'm afraid their true strength is comparable to that of a giant and cultivator. We are here. Zhao Mubei raised his hand and used the secret technique of the spiritual pupil. The mountains ahead were covered by a thick layer of black air. "This is the source of the evil spirit," Zhao Mubei said in a deep voice. At this moment, the 2 of them had given up hope for the survival of the Zhao family cultivators. But where did the Zhao family's mortals go? They were very confused at first. You know, in addition to tens of thousands of cultivators, the Zhao family also has millions of mortals. With so many mortals, even if they all died, there would always be a place to bury their bodies. But the fact is, Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei searched all 8 islands, but didn't find even one mortal from the Zhao family. Now the only possibility is that the mortals from the Zhao family were refined into corpse servants by this group of evil spirits. There is a 3rd level yin vein here, and it is very convenient to refine corpse servants. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan couldn't help but clench his fists. As a person who has received education from the civilization of the previous life, Chen Daoxuan has felt that his 3 views are incompatible with this world since he was born. Because compared with the previous life, this world is more cruel and naked. The life of mortals in this world is humble and pitiful, far beyond the ancient society of the previous life. This can be seen from the attitude of the mortals in Chen Daoxuan's clan towards him. This is still a family member. Other ordinary people are often more humble when they see the monks. Because this is a group of people who can take their lives with just a flick of their fingers. Sometimes, Chen Daoxuan feels that he is very lucky because he has spiritual roots. At least in this world, he can try to control his own destiny. But ordinary mortals, they have no military power and no productivity. For monks, Even their living space depends on the mercy and charity of monks. Even so, the mortals in this world still live tenaciously and hardworkingly. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan has a sense of anger in his heart, a difficult to calm down anger. Whether it is a monk or a mortal, everyone is human. Obviously, they are all human beings, and mortals have lived such a humble life, but they still suffer such a tragic fate. Millions of people, they are said to be refined into corpse servants. Chen Daoxuan didn't know whether these evil spirits were human or ghosts. But at this moment, he secretly swore in his heart that he would fight with these beasts to death. Zhao Mubei seemed to notice that Chen Daoxuan exuded a strong murderous intent and was surprised. Brother Chen, what's wrong? Nothing. I just feel a little uncomfortable when I think about the Zhao family's mortals. Hearing this, Zhao Mubei sighed and comforted. Maybe things are not as bad as you think. This sentence. Even he didn't believe it himself, but Zhao Mubei could only comfort himself like this. Millions of lives disappeared just like that. Let's go. Zhao Mubei took out an invisibility talisman, slapped it on himself, and then slapped it on Chen Daoxuan, and then the sword light rolled up, taking Chen Daoxuan to fly into the deep mountains. He also wanted to take a look at this moment. Is it really as bad as they imagined? But after Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei flew over several hills, they saw a scene that they would never forget in a basin surrounded by mountains. In the valley basin below, corpses piled up like garbage in the valley basin. Zhao Mubei used the secret technique of the spiritual pupil and found that all the piled corpses were infected by the yin shaki. All the time, these corpses were being tempered by the yin shaki. Sure enough, they are refining corpses. Zhao Mubei's face was livid. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan's hands were shaking slightly. He almost bit his teeth to pieces and said, I want to chop these bastards into pieces bit by bit. I'll go with you. Zhao Mubei said with a livid face. Chapter 147 Fierce Battle. I heard that someone wants to chop me into pieces. A cold voice came from behind the two of them. Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei turned around quickly after hearing the voice. Because they didn't dare to reveal their tracks, they didn't dare to show their figures, and they didn't even dare to release their spiritual consciousness for fear of alerting the enemy. Unexpectedly, the two were so careful. They were still discovered by the other party. Seeing that they were discovered, Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei simply removed the invisibility talisman and breath holding technique on their bodies. They confronted the Sun Fu brothers in the air. Behind the Sun Fu brothers, 3 corpse servants wearing spiritual armor and glowing with silver stood in the air, surrounded by bloody murderous aura. Zhao Mubei recognized at a glance that these 3 were all cultivators from the Wu and Zhao families when they were alive. And they all had perfect foundation building cultivation when they were alive. Unexpectedly, after the tempering of the Sun brothers, they were actually promoted to the Purple Mansion level. However, Zhao Mubei knew that this kind of forcibly promoted Purple Mansion corpse was no match for normal Purple Mansion cultivators. After all, this kind of corpse is only strong in the flesh, and its means are very limited. Of course, its attack and defense are definitely at the level of Purple Mansion cultivators. If you think that Purple Mansion cultivators have many means, you dare to ignore the opponent's attack, which is completely courting death. At this point, Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei have no choice but to fight. But what the two did not expect was that a blood-colored light curtain rose straight up from the corpse refining ground and instantly sealed the sky above Chen Daoxuan and the others' heads. Not good. Seeing this, Zhao Mubei pulled Chen Daoxuan up, and the light of escape flashed, but was still stopped by the blood-colored light curtain. How is it? How does the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation I prepared for you taste? Sun Fu looked at the two trapped in the formation and laughed sinisterly. Although the Sun brothers were also in the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation, this blood evil aura would only enhance the strength of their zombies, not weaken them. Sure enough, as the blood evil aura in the formation became heavier, it became increasingly difficult for the Sha-breaking pill to stop the invasion of the blood evil aura. Zhao Mubei and Chen Daoxuan had to use their true essence and magic power to resist the invasion of the blood evil aura. No, if we continue like this, when our mana and essence are exhausted, it will be our death. Zhao Mubei's face became serious. The Purple Mansion corpse servant belongs to you. After saying that, He directly rolled up the sword light, covering the Sun Brothers and the two corpse servants. The Sun Brothers knew that Zhao Mubei was amazingly powerful. But at this moment, Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei were already trapped in the formation. They didn't need to fight each other head on. They just needed to wait for the formation to consume their essence and mana little by little. The two of them naturally became meat on the chopping board, at the mercy of others. Especially Zhao Mubei is a sword cultivator. I wonder if the corpse servants made by sword cultivators will be stronger than ordinary corpse servants? Sun Fu thought sinisterly. From the moment it was turned into a zombie by the real person Shenju, it had been completely twisted. What it wants now is to turn everyone in the world into zombies. In this way, everyone will be the same again. As for the zombies, they have no pain, no touch, no taste, and no soul. What does it matter? Corpse servants do not need self-awareness, they just need to be puppets of their masters. The reason why the two brothers retained their self-awareness is because their masters need them to complete the task of conquering Kangzhou. And their master, the Taoist Shenju, seems to be particularly cautious. He hides in his lair and is unwilling to take risks, so all this can only be done by the two of them. If you want to accomplish this, a corpse servant without self-awareness will not work. This is also the only lucky place for the two brothers. Seeing that the last purple mansion zombie was still rushing towards Zhao Mubei, Chen Daoxuan rolled up the sword light and rolled it into his attack. The sword energy turned into rain, the white marks became a curtain, and the sword marks merged into starlight. This is the change in the external performance of Chen Daoxuan's sword before and after he comprehended the silk rain sword meaning. At this moment, starlight fell like a meteor and hit the silver body of the purple mansion zombie. But this purple mansion zombie not only has a spiritual armor to protect its body, but also has a strong body. Chen Daoxuan felt that the opponent's body was even more terrifying than that of the monsters of the same level, and he had no sense of pain. After Chen Daoxuan's sword marks merged, the attack power of the sword turned starlight definitely reached the level of the early stage of the purple mansion. The only difference between him and the purple mansion cultivators might be defense. That's right. As a sword cultivator, defense has once again become his shortcoming. But this is also the shortcoming of all sword cultivators in the world. Because sword cultivators focus on attacking and emphasize attacking instead of defense. If even the attack of the sword cultivator can't break the opponent's defense, it proves that the gap between the two sides is already a world of difference, and there is not much difference between defense or not. But at this moment, the situation is a bit special. Chen Daoxuan encountered a purple mansion zombie, and the opponent happened to be good at defense. Compared with its defense, the attack of this purple mansion zombie did not cause much damage to Chen Daoxuan. Every time the opponent pounced on him, he only needed to use a starlight to slash his body and dodge slightly. In this way, the two sides actually stalemate. To be honest, if you change the scene, Chen Daoxuan was not afraid of a war of attrition with the other party. After all, he had a true essence reservoir, the second level fortune white lotus. But at this moment, he could not afford to consume it. The bloody evil spirit was getting thicker and thicker, eroding and consuming his true essence all the time. Moreover, even if he could afford it, Zhao Mubei might not be able to afford it. After all, Zhao Mubei did not have his life-saving magic weapon. Thinking of this, he glanced at Zhao Mubei's battle circle. It seemed that they were afraid of Zhao Mubei's offensive methods. The Sun Brothers' fighting style was quite wretched, that is, they tried their best to avoid fighting with the other party. If they really had to fight hard, they would fight with several zombies together. Until now, Zhao Mubei did cut off the hands of one of the two purple mansion early zombies. But with the replenishment of blood evil spirit, Chen Daoxuan found that the zombie's hand had grown again. Chen Daoxuan immediately saw the problem. Every time Zhao Mubei wanted to kill a purple mansion early zombie to break the balance of combat power between the two sides, the Sun Brothers tried their best to intercept him. With the strength of its brother Zifu, even if Zhao Mubei can defeat them, he will have to work hard. Every time there is such a delay, the crisis of the zombies in the early stage of Zifu is resolved, and the Sun Brothers start to fight guerrilla warfare with Zhao Mubei again. Chen Daoxuan can see it. The two zombies can barely block Zhao Mubei's attack when they join forces. This is also the confidence for them to ambush and kill Zhao Mubei. If Xiao Mubei can kill them with one sword. They probably ran away when they just found Xiao Mubei. Seeing this, Chen Daoxuan made up his mind while dodging the attack of this Zifu zombie. He said, "Brother Xiao, I will stop one of their brothers, and you focus on dealing with the other zombies." Hearing this, Xiao Mubei was surprised at first, but then thought that he had no choice at the moment, so he had to take the risk and agree. Okay. Chapter 148, transformed into sword light. The next moment, Chen Daoxuan rushed into Xiao Mubei's battle circle with the zombie he was fighting with. Xiao Mubei saw the right time and a sword beam crossed the sky. The sword beam was hundreds of feet long and submerged everyone's sight. At this moment, in the eyes of everyone, there was nothing else in the world except the sword beam. Even the bloody aura that permeated the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation was split apart by this sword beam. The sword beam finally hit the red light curtain of the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation, emitting ripples and disappearing. Seeing this scene, Xiao Mubei's heart sank, but he was not too disappointed, because his goal had been achieved. I saw this sword beam hundreds of feet long forcibly separating the inseparable Sun brothers. Seeing this, Sun Fu paused, then flew up, wanting to reunite with his brother. But Xiao Mubei was not willing to give him a chance. The sword flashed, and it was re-entered into its offensive, and also the purple mansion early stage zombie that was fighting with Chen Daoxuan. Well done. Chen Daoxuan's face lit up, and then a starlight suddenly appeared, directly bombarding the white-faced zombie that wanted to join Sun Fu. Boom. The starlight fell like a meteor. It hit the silver-purple body of Sun Fu's brother Sun Mang, causing his body to suddenly stop when he came back to help. Sun Mang looked at Chen Daoxuan who was attacking it, grinning with a bloody mouth full of fangs, and a golden light flashed in the depths of his pupils, full of tyranny and cruelty. You actually want to stop me? Just you?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan took a deep breath and nodded. "Just me? How dare you?" Sun Mang roared. He immediately punched Chen Daoxuan. Chen Daoxuan, like dealing with the purple mansion zombie before, also turned his flying sword into a starlight and bombarded it. Who would have thought that the attack that could make the purple mansion initial stage zombie stagger when used on Sun Mang only made it pause for a moment and then rushed towards Chen Daoxuan again. Not good. Chen Daoxuan's eyes condensed. Obviously, the purple mansion perfection zombie was far beyond his scope of response. After all, his current cultivation level was only at the initial stage of foundation building. Other cultivators at his level, let alone fighting with the purple mansion perfection zombie, it is estimated that the enemy's roar would be enough to scare the cultivators at the initial stage of foundation building to death. At the critical moment, Chen Daoxuan's escape light flashed, and he narrowly avoided Sun Mang's attack. "Hide?" Sun Mang smiled cruelly. "Let's see how long you can hide." Chen Daoxuan remained silent. Facing the purple mansion perfection zombie, he no longer had the energy to speak, and he had to concentrate on the opponent's movements. After all, as long as he was hit by the opponent's casual attack, he would be killed on the spot. Chen Daoxuan had no doubt about this. This is why zombies can only fight in close combat and have limited means. If it was a purple mansion perfected cultivator of the human race, Chen Daoxuan would definitely be killed on the spot in a few moves, and there would be no chance for him to play such an exciting game with the other party. As if he thought of something, Chen Daoxuan's mind moved. In an instant, the area within a radius of several thousand feet was covered by a rain curtain. Sword key turning into rain. This ability that he had realized before comprehending the sword intent. As Chen Daoxuan's sword cultivation became more and more profound, he had used it less and less. Because the enemies he faced were either in the early stage of Purple Mansion or in the great perfection of Purple Mansion. There was not even a normal foundation building cultivator. Facing an opponent of this level, the move of turning sword energy into rain was simply tickling the opponent. Kai kai kai. The raindrops transformed from sword energy fell on Sun Mang's terrifying body with silver purple muscles, making a kai 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 sound. But it couldn't even hurt the opponent's hair. Sun Mang laughed sinisterly. "What, are you tickling me? If this is all you have, then go to hell." After saying that, Sun Mang's figure was like lightning, and he rushed towards Chen Daoxuan at a speed 3 times faster than before. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan seemed to be frightened and stood there motionless. Bang! The claws pierced the air, making a loud bang. Sun Mang's claws were as black as ink and as sharp as a sword. With just one move, he tore Chen Daoxuan's figure into pieces. However, there was no blood at all. After image, Sun Mang turned his head, and the next moment, he found that in the rain curtain with a radius of thousands of feet, one after another Chen Daoxuan's figure appeared in front of him. Sun Mang was stunned. He was a zombie, without a soul, so he had no consciousness. At this moment, he couldn't tell which Chen Daoxuan in front of him was the real one. Moreover, among these Chen Daoxuan, some disappeared from time to time, and new Chen Daoxuan appeared from time to time. It was extremely weird. This is a short-range combat method that Chen Daoxuan created after months of understanding the sword light transformed into rainbow technique and combining it with his own sword intent. This method is not only as fast as lightning, but also has the effect of confusing the enemy. For example, now, the hundreds of Chen Daoxuan figures in front of Sun Mang made him extremely annoyed, because he couldn't tell which figure was real and which was fake. This method was inspired by Chen Daoxuan's sword energy turning into rain, which is to use the human body as a flying sword. However, it requires a high level of physical strength. Fortunately, Chen Daoxuan has practiced the body training method, so it is not a big problem to practice this method. This method was named by him, body turning into sword light. He tore dozens of figures into pieces in a row, but in the end, none of them was real, and Chen Daoxuan's figures became more and more, and finally almost like a rain curtain transformed by sword energy, sticking to Sun Mang's body. How unreasonable. How unreasonable. Sun Mang was so angry at Chen Daoxuan's shameless fighting method that he screamed. Chen Daoxuan's strength was obviously not as good as his, but he played him around. How could he not be angry? At this moment, he suddenly missed his spiritual consciousness when he was a human cultivator. If he had spiritual consciousness, how could he be played by Chen Daoxuan like this? At least he could distinguish the true from the false. But what it didn't know was that even if it had spiritual consciousness, it would be extremely difficult to distinguish the true from the false, because Chen Daoxuan practiced the breath holding technique and cultivated it to a very high level. There are only two ways to crack this method. One is that the spiritual consciousness of the cultivator far exceeds Chen Daoxuan, so he can naturally see through the true from the false at a glance. The other way is to practice the secret technique of spiritual eyes like Zhao Mubei, and can also distinguish the true from the false. On the field, Sun Mang became more and more angry. Get out. Suddenly, Sun Mang saw that his elder brother was in a precarious situation under Zhao Mubei's attack, and he became anxious. He tore Chen Daoxuan's sword light incarnation into pieces with one claw. He rushed towards Zhao Mubei's battle circle. But the reason why Chen Daoxuan held it back was to let Zhao Mubei kill the enemy. How could he let Sun Mang come back to help? Immediately, a starlight fell and hit Sun Mang's chest, causing him to pause. The terrifying impact force directly stopped his body and made him unable to fly to support. But other than that, the starlight did not cause any damage to Sun Mang. Chen Daoxuan did not expect his attack to hurt the other party. He just needed to hold Sun Mang back. Now, the anxious party turned out to be the Sun brothers. On the other side, Sun Fu saw his brother roaring wildly, but he had no way to deal with Chen Daoxuan, and his heart gradually sank. He had calculated everything, but he missed the variable of Chen Daoxuan. If there was no Chen Daoxuan, it and its brother Sun Fu, plus the 3 early stage Purple Mansion zombies, with the assistance of the 10,000 corpses Blood Evil formation, would have at least an 80% chance of leaving Zhao Mubei behind. But now, thinking of this, Sun Fu made up his mind and took out a white round bead the size of an adult's fist. Chapter 149 Soul Fixing Divine Pearl. Come out. Come out. What's the point of just hiding? Sun Mang had a green face and fangs. His eyes were sunken, and he looked like a madman. Facing Sun Mang's shouting, Chen Daoxuan ignored him. Seeing this, Sun Mang's claws swung wildly in the rain, but what he tore apart was only Chen Daoxuan's sword light incarnation. In fact, the speed at which he tore it apart was not as fast as the speed at which Chen Daoxuan created it. In a radius of thousands of feet, incarnations continued to emerge like raindrops. Even if Sun Mang tore dozens or hundreds of sword-light incarnations apart with one blow, Chen Daoxuan could create 10 times the amount in an instant. It has to be said, this move is very useful for dealing with enemies like Sun Mang who have no means of group attack and can only fight in close combat. Of course, this move can only be used to delay time. It is almost impossible to kill the enemy, because Chen Daoxuan's strongest attack can't even break the opponent's defense. He still has this self-knowledge. On the other side, you dare to be distracted while fighting with me? As soon as Sun Fu heard this, he secretly cursed in his heart and quickly turned his body. The next moment, a dazzling sword light slashed through its left arm like a thread, directly cutting off its left arm. Die. Zhao Mubei took advantage of the situation and controlled the flying sword to kill his head again. Although zombies are invulnerable to swords and guns and are immune to water and fire, but they are not without any weaknesses. For example, if you cut off its head and smash its corpse pill, the zombie will completely die. How dare Sun Fu take Zhao Mubei's flying sword again? He quickly called 3 Purple Mansion initial stage corpse servants to block the sword for it. The 3 corpse servants did not know what fear was and completely obeyed the master's order and rushed towards Zhao Mubei's sword light. In just a moment, a Purple Mansion initial stage corpse servant was split in half by Zhao Mubei's flying sword. Although the bloody evil spirit of the 10,000 corpses blood evil array continued to flow towards the body of the corpse servant, trying to repair its body that was broken into 2 pieces, it was ultimately in vain. Sun Fu saw that it was distracted for a moment, and Zhao Mubei seized the opportunity to cripple one of its helpers. He was immediately shocked and angry. No. This can't go on. Sun Fu was secretly anxious. Then, he looked at Zhao Mubei and then at Chen Daoxuan who kept teasing his brother. He made a decision in his heart. Kill the weaker one first, and then concentrate on besieging and killing Zhao Mubei. Thinking of this, Sun Fu picked up the white magic bead in his hand and threw it into the air. The magic bead seemed to have spirituality, spinning in the air, and then a beam of light shone towards Chen Daoxuan. Who knows? Zhao Mubei saw this scene. Suddenly, a scene recorded in the ancient books of the clan emerged in his mind. True Man Shenju. Dingpo Divine Bead. This was the famous magic weapon of True Man Shenju back then. Dingpo Divine Bead. Rumor has it, this bead can cooperate with the unique magical power inherited by the true immortal Shenju from the upper realm, called Dingpo Shengang. Dingpo Shengang is extremely powerful. With the cultivation of the late giant of the true immortal Shenju, he can even use this magical power to fix the Yuaning's engine who is 1 level higher than him. You know, there is no need to say what will happen when high level cultivators fight and one side is controlled by the other. It is simply a one-sided slaughter. It is precisely with this magical power, coupled with the unique means of escape and hiding of the true immortal Shenju, and the energy of the Kainyuan sword sect was involved in its own internal affairs. Let the true immortal Shenju rampant in Kangshao and several surrounding states for nearly 100 years. It was not until the Kainyuan sword sect resolved its internal affairs that it freed up its hands and cleaned it up. No. To be precise, Zhao Mubei was not sure whether the true immortal Shenju was killed that year, because the Kainyuan sword sect did not bring back the other party's body, but announced in public that the true immortal Shenju died of self-detonation of the Jianden, and hurriedly left Kangshao. Now, 400 years have passed. The matter of Master Shenju had long been sealed by the major families. If it weren't for the casual cultivators constantly telling the story of this person, the name of Master Shenju might have been completely forgotten by people. Now, Master Shenju's famous magic weapon appeared again. Thinking of this, Zhao Mubei suddenly became anxious. If Master Shenju was behind what happened in the Zhao family, Zhao Mubei's first reaction was to escape immediately and report to Kainyuan sword sect. As the heir of the Zhao family, he knew much more about Master Shenju than the casual cultivators outside. Back then, Kainyuan sword sect sent a total of 3 Yuaning's engine to encircle and suppress the opponent. As a result, not only did they not see the opponent's corpse, but they also lost a Yuaning's engine. That's right. Master Shenju has achieved a feat that no one in the history of Wang Xinghe has ever achieved. With the cultivation of Jianden, he killed Yuan Ying's engine in reverse, and he was still fighting 1 against 3. And now it seems that this person is very likely not dead. After all, his magic weapon has appeared, and this time the Zhao family has suddenly collapsed. No matter how you look at it, it seems that the Taoist Shenju came back to take revenge on the Kangzhou cultivators. After all, the Taoist Shenju rose to prominence in Kangzhou. He also had the most hatred with the cultivators of the major families in Kangzhou. In Guanghan Prefecture, almost every large family with a long history has suffered a great loss at the hands of the Taoist Shenju. The Zhao family was originally a Jianden family, and the Jianden ancestor of the family passed away in the battle against the Taoist Shenju. Daoxuan, be careful, Zhao Mubei shouted, while bursting out his strongest attack, Blue Lotus Sword Art. Die. In the air, a blue lotus was about to bloom. This blue lotus wrapped the 2 purple mansion early stage zombies in front of him. Then, the blue lotus opened, 1 petal, 2 petals, and 3 petals. With each layer of petals, the body of the purple mansion early stage zombie became more illusory. In the end, the 2 zombies completely disappeared in front of everyone, without even a slag left. At the same time, the light on the Dingpo Divine Pearl had already shone on Chen Daoxuan. In an instant, Chen Daoxuan only felt a strange energy that imprisoned his sea of consciousness. But the golden scroll Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra suppressed in the sea of consciousness space trembled slightly. This imprisoning force disappeared instantly. From the outside, the Dingpo Divine Light emitted by the Dingpo Divine Pearl was actually ineffective on Chen Daoxuan. How could it have no effect? This time, Sun Fu was completely dumbfounded. The master told him that, although the Dingpo Divine Pearl in his hand was a fake, it was enough to fix a Jianden cultivator for 3 breaths. Chen Daoxuan was just a foundation building cultivator. How could he be fine? Could it be that the master was deceiving him? Impossible. Sun Fu quickly shook his head. The master had no reason to deceive him. Then, there was only one possibility, that there was a strange treasure in Chen Daoxuan's Sea of Consciousness that could guard the Sea of Consciousness. Thinking of this, Sun Fu couldn't help but shout that he was unlucky. If he had known earlier, he might as well use this Dingpo Divine Light on Zhao Mubei. He was just worried that Zhao Mubei had a treasure to protect him, so he chose Chen Daoxuan, who looked easier to bully. Unexpectedly, the soul-fixing divine light had no effect on Chen Daoxuan at all. Chapter 150 Return in Death. Zhao Mubei killed 2 early-stage purple mansion zombies with 1 sword. Then he looked at Sun Fu, which frightened him so much that he fled in a hurry. He didn't bother to chase Sun Fu. Zhao Mubei raised his head and looked at the blood-colored light curtain in the sky. He took a deep breath. The next moment, he summoned all the magic power in his dinshin. There was a flash of light in his eyes, and he obviously used the secret technique of the spiritual pupil. Found it. Faintly, he seemed to have found the weak point of the red light curtain. He raised his hand, and a giant green lotus floated above his head and pressed towards the blood-colored light curtain. Crack, crack. As the petals of the green lotus continued to bloom, the blood-colored light curtain made a sound of shattering under the heavy load. Bang. With a loud bang, the blood-colored light curtain directly shattered into a huge gap. Seeing this scene, Zhao Mubei's face was happy. He glanced at Chen Daoxuan, who was still circling around with Sun Mang, and with a flash of light, he found Chen Daoxuan's true body. Seeing Zhao Mubei found Chen Daoxuan's true body, Sun Mang, with red eyes, rushed towards the 2 people regardless of anything. Get lost. Zhao Mubei roared, and a sword beam of hundreds of feet slashed straight over. He directly blasted Sun Mang more than 10 miles away with 1 sword. This sword immediately calmed down the crazy Sun Mang, and he looked at Zhao Mubei with a hint of fear. Too fierce. If the sword was a little stronger, it could shatter its corpse pill. If the corpse pill was shattered, it would really die. Unlike injuries, like broken hands and feet, it can be easily recovered. Let's go. After blasting Sun Mang away with a sword, Zhao Mubei didn't care about chasing him and flew directly with Chen Daoxuan towards the broken hole of the blood-colored light curtain. Finally, before the blood-colored light curtain closed again, Zhao Mubei rushed out with Chen Daoxuan. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan noticed that Zhao Mubei's face was as pale as paper. Obviously, the previous round of big moves had cost him a lot. It was normal to think about it. First, he killed 2 Purple Mansion early stage zombies with 1 sword, and then broke through the blood-killing formation of 10,000 corpses that were said to be able to trap giant and cultivators. Before leaving, he severely injured Sun Mang, who had reached the perfection of Purple Mansion, with 1 sword. After this round of explosion, even with Zhao Mubei's cultivation of the 3rd level of Purple Mansion, his mana was almost exhausted at this moment. Not to mention that the blood-killing formation of 10,000 corpses was consuming the 2's true essence and mana all the time. Brother Zhao, are you okay? Hearing this, Zhao Mubei shook his head and said with a little relief, fortunately, I brought you here this time, otherwise I'm afraid I would be in real danger this time. The situation just now, even if it was another giant and early stage cultivator who came, he might be killed by the Sun brothers. Anyway, in the blood-killing formation of 10,000 corpses, as long as they can't be killed in one blow, they can use the power of blood to recover quickly, as if they have immortal bodies. With the power of the 5 Purple Mansions, plus the weakening of the human cultivators by the 10,000 corpses blood evil formation, it might be possible to grind the giant and early stage cultivator to death. Anyway, Zhao Mubei felt that, if he came alone, he would have less than 30% chance of escaping. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan also felt very fortunate. Fortunately, Zhao Mubei was strong, otherwise the 2 of them would have been in danger of death. This was probably the most dangerous situation Chen Daoxuan had ever encountered in his life. Being trapped in the formation. In the world of cultivating immortals, how many high-level cultivators were trapped in the formation and slowly ground to death by a group of low-level cultivators? Such examples are simply too numerous to mention. Chen Daoxuan didn't expect that he would actually encounter it today. On a small island outside the Lotus Island, Zhao Yuanhuan was anxious, but he knew that at this moment, except for waiting for news from Zhao Mubei, he could do nothing. The current situation. Obviously, it was beyond his ability. At this time, a beam of light flew from the horizon from far to near. Zhao Yuanhuan was just about to bow his hands, but the next moment he felt dizzy. He only heard the word go. When he recovered, he was already standing on Zhao Mubei's flying sword. It was not until he escaped thousands of miles away that Zhao Mubei breathed a sigh of relief. Senior Zhao Zhao, may I ask, what is the situation in my clan? Zhao Yuanhuan saw Zhao Mubei breathed a sigh of relief and asked impatiently. Hearing this, whether it was Zhao Mubei or Chen Daoxuan, their eyes dimmed. Zhao Mubei patted Zhao Yuanhuan's skinny shoulders and said in a deep voice, Dao Zhao, please accept my condolences. Hearing this, Zhao Yuanhuan felt that his heart was hit hard by someone else. He couldn't help but roared, Senior Zhao, please explain clearly, what do you mean by accepting condolences? Are all the cultivators of my Zhao family on the side? Chen Daoxuan said in a low voice, not only you Zhao family cultivators, but even ordinary members of the Zhao family. No. Hearing this, Zhao Yuanhuan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and a hint of death appeared in his eyes. Zhao Yuanhuan was the only one left in the Zhao family. A clan of millions of people was destroyed in one day. Seeing Zhao Yuanhuan like this, the 2 did not know how to comfort him. Or rather, any words of comfort now would be pale and powerless for Zhao Yuanhuan, an old man who was approaching the end of his life. Perhaps, for Zhao Yuanhuan, the only consolation was to kill the murderers who killed the Zhao family members one by one with his own hands. Unfortunately, he was destined not to have the ability to do so. At this moment, he had completely despaired of this world. In the end, the death in Zhao Yuanhuan's eyes became heavier and heavier. When the 2 arrived at Linghui Island, Zhao Yuanhuan sat stiffly on Zhao Mubei's flying sword, and there was no breath in his nose. Dao Zhao. Chen Daoxuan called softly. He's dead. Zhao Mubei shook his head. He died of exhaustion of life, and even more of despair. Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan couldn't help but think of the piles of corpses piled up in the mountain basin. There was an uncontrollable anger in his heart. He walked forward and squatted in front of Zhao Yuanhuan, saying in a gentle but firm voice, Friend Zhao, don't worry, we will definitely avenge your Zhao family. Zhao Mubei stood behind Chen Daoxuan, not knowing what he was thinking for a while. Lingboi Island. Zhao family land. Chen Daoxuan stepped into the Zhao family land for the first time. I have always heard that the Zhao family land is a place for cultivation like a fairyland. Seeing it today, it is far more exaggerated than the rumors. The spiritual energy of the 4th level spiritual vein can no longer be simply described as rich, but should be described as pure. This feeling is like the spiritual energy that Chen Daoxuan filtered with the water spirit bead. What's more terrifying is that this spiritual energy has not been filtered by the water spirit bead. That is to say, as long as the Zhao family cultivators are willing, they can use the water spirit bead to filter the spiritual energy again at any time to achieve better cultivation effects. Not to mention any cultivation resources. Just this 4th level spiritual vein alone, in the entire Guanghan prefecture, this is the only one. As for the other 3 big families, the Yang family, the Wu family, and the Zhao family, that had been exterminated, they only had the 3rd level spiritual vein as a place for their family members to practice. In the Zhao family's territory, in the highest palace on the Lingshan mountain, Chen Daoxuan and Zhao Mubei met the patriarch of the Zhao family, Zhao Minghao. Fin est capitulo muchas gracias por legajar el final no es y olvidar del lake buscas más contenido exclusivo y acceso inmediato, suscria bet en nuestro Patreon. Recuerda, cada like, suscripción o donación nos americana. Gracias a todos nos vemos en el próximo video.